What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of 4th and 15 with Mel and Smooth. I am Mel, and joining me as always is Ronnie Big Smooth Hannigan. Smooth, what's up, man?
Mel, I am doing great, sir. How are you?
Bro, you already know. We just had this talk, man. Like these little crib midgets I call children
Oh
driving me
yeah.
insane.
Some would say children's, but depending on where you're from, some say children. That's another way of saying that, you
Un-
know.
unless
But
unless it was my grandmother, I would say children. But sometimes I just be wanting to.
Get over here.
and the best, right?
Exactly. And speaking of get over here, our special guest tonight is Mr. Mortal Kombat himself. He was Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and Johnny Cage in the first two Mortal Kombat games. Daniel Pesina, Master Pesina, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. And yeah, we'll get those kids and finish them.
Man, you can have the oldest one right now. Okay. So we're going to start off humble beginnings. What was life like growing up for you? How did you get into martial arts? And what was the martial arts scene like back then, as opposed to your first go round competing?
You know what? I started martial arts. The first time I fell in love with martial arts, my dad and I on Sunday used to watch a show. It's a black and white. This is how back in the day, only black and white TV. So there was this show, Charlie Chan Detective, where this detective, short little Asian detective, would solve crimes. And during one episode, I saw him like judo throw this guy. And my dad's I'm Mexican. I'm born in America, but my mom and dad came from Mexico. And my dad got naturalized because he was in the U.S. Army, served in the Korean War.
Nice.
So
Awesome.
he actually was like, "Oh, I could teach you that throw." So my dad let me throw him, and it only happened one time because I think I might have hurt his back or something when he flipped over by himself, because I'm like 6 years old, and my dad's like flying over, and then my mom's yelling at us. But anyway, ever since then, I really fell in love with like the mysterious martial art. Later on, Bruce Lee came up, Green Hornet, and finally I kept bugging my dad for martial art lessons, and he took me in for martial art lessons, and man, I fell in love with it. But at this time, when I went to martial art lessons, it was like 1968 or 69. There were no kids classes. Like, I was like literally like 10 years old, and my dad took me to this school that taught judo and karate, Japanese judo and karate, and some jujitsu, Japanese jujitsu. And my dad asked about classes, and they started when they were 13. Kids started when they're 13. But the guy looked at me, and my dad's like, he's 13. And the guy looked at him, and the instructor looked at him, but started talking with my dad, and it wound up that this guy learned his martial arts in Japan when he's stationed overseas. So he was also military. So since he was military and my dad were military, and they kind of figured that out, he was like, yeah, let's throw him into class. So here I am in a class, 10 years old, with, the older kids are like 12, 13 years old learning this judo. But also at the time, when I finally, 6 years later, man, I used to drive, I used to take the bus by myself at 10 years old to this judo school to train. You know what I mean? Because my dad would be working at night. My mom had her job in the day. And so I had to take the bus if I really wanted to learn. But in the end, after 6 years, I tested for my black belt. And because I was not 18 years old, I received a red and black belt. And technically, I was a black belt, but I could not wear a black belt until I was 18. So, yeah. So the time was very, very different. Like that stuff. I've seen tournaments where, there was basically... I didn't do it because I was really young and only doing judo, but I saw tournaments where the karate guys would just be wearing mouthpieces and cups, bare hand. You can hear, when you hear you would hear the meat slapping. You know what I mean? When you get that.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like at the beginning, I was just shocked. But you know what? You just get used to it. You know,
Kumite, eat your heart out.
man. Yeah, those guys were tough. Those back in the day, they were really freaking tough.
Okay. You started competing at 16, I believe you said. Now, what was competing like back then? Because we all know the scene has changed dramatically
Oh yeah.
now. And like you said, it was bare knuckle back then in some cases. So now you're 16. What was competing like for you? How did they know how to group you into competing with people that were around your age? And
they did it by so I started competing actually when I was 12 years old, and it was all by weight and rank. So there were three different. There was yellow belt until blue belt, and that was a weight. There was a weight division. So it was okay if you're under 14 years old, you're going to compete. So and then the weight division is kind of wide. They give you like 20. So sometimes I would be sparring people who are 20 pounds heavier than me, which is a big. It's a big difference. You know what I mean? Usually now I don't think that's big of a deal, but it was that. And two, there were no joint locks. Like I was not 18. You could do joint locks, but I couldn't do joint locks, but I could choke. Like I think at about the age 13 at a tournament was the first time I choked the guy out. So yeah.
13.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Right, I'm like, wait.
Yeah. After I threw him, I applied the choke, and you're supposed to tap out, but he did not want to lose, so he didn't tap out. And I can remember because it's kind of at the beginning, it's kind of shocking because I was just like that, and I felt him go loose, but I didn't let go because I didn't know if he was taking me out. So then the ref comes and grabs me, pulls me off of him, and in the end, I just looked at him. I felt really bad. But, again, that's the whole thing is that, you start getting used to it. And then eventually by time 16, I didn't have any problem choking a person out.
I see that. Choking out big dudes. Okay. Let's fast forward and we're going to hit the scene 1990s, rather. And for those that are watching or will be watching later on, if you ever play a video game nowadays and you see this little M, T, or E on your video game box, this guy helped create the system that started that. Okay, John Tobias, Ed Boon, they're working for, I believe it's Midway, and they want to create a fighting game that's not like Street Fighter or anything else. How did they find you? Because we all know that they used real martial artists.
Yeah.
But, for motion captures, you would think they would use actors, but they got real martial artists. So how did they find you and convince you to get started on the Mortal Kombat project?
So for one thing, I'm a geek. Like my older brother introduced me to comic books at like the age of 3 or 4. So he would buy comic books and give them to me. So I was a geek, and my brother Carlos, who's Raiden, he eventually graduated with a graphics degree,
Nice.
in computer graphics. But right now he works for NetherRealm, so he works for Warner Brothers. But anyway, he had a friend who would come over and draw at my parents' kitchen table, and that friend was John Tobias. So sometimes we would go to the movies together because, again, it's that like at the 90s, we'd go to old kung fu movies together. Like we would go see, we saw Five Deadly Venoms. We would go watch Master Killer.
Best movie ever.
Master Killer, 36 Chambers. We would watch all these kung fu movies, or we'd go to see, back in that day, E.T. or any type of that type of geeky movie. We would get together and go see it. But I just finished doing stunts for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then John calls my parents home because I lived at home at the time. I was still relatively dependent on my parents as far as that, because when you're still an actor, it's hard to eat and pay rent and stuff like that. So I was still living at home trying to pursue this acting career, and also I would compete in tournaments, and that would require you to take weekends off and go to tournaments. But anyway, so when I got back to it about 3 months later, I get a call from John, and John is like, "Hey." And two, when I used to at one time when John was in high school, he wanted to direct a martial art movie with me and my brother Carlos and Rich DeVizio, who's Kano, because we knew each other back then. So we tried to do that, but he's like, "Hey, I got an idea. Can you help me? I have an idea for a fighting game. I want to pitch this idea of a fighting game with using real people and not like a Karate Fighter or anything of the games on there." He goes, "I want to have them really like do this. I want to put blood in there." And he goes, "Can you help me do this?" He goes, "I can't pay you a lot, but any idea you have, we'll be in the game, and we'll give you credit for the game and things like that." So I was like, it sounds like a good project. He's like, "We're only going to make 200 arcade cabinets. That's it." So I was like, "Okay, cool. I'll help you." So we basically, because he didn't want anyone to really hear about his idea until the presentation, he wanted to make a presentation. So we had some drawings of some characters, and then we went to Midway games like after hours, and I choreographed some martial art fight scenes, and we did some fight scenes between me, Rich, and Carlos. And we took that videotape, and he took his drawings and he approached Midway. And then about 3 or 4 days later, John called me up and he's like, "Hey, they like the idea of a fighting game. They want to meet with you because you're going to be helping me with this. And we're going to meet a programmer, and we're going to tell them more ideas about this game." So John and I, and then we invited Rich and Carlos, we met, and later on I'd find out that this guy's name was Ed Boon. But we presented this whole thing to Ed Boon. And so, he listened to our pitch and stuff like that. And then about a week later, John called me up and said, "Hey, guess what? They're not going to do our fighting game. They think it's a better idea to do a mainstream fighting game with Jean-Claude Van Damme." So Mortal Kombat was canceled for about almost 3 months. So we weren't going to do Mortal Kombat, but again, one of the ideas was one of my ideas was to put the idea of the Lin Kuei in there, and to change. John wanted these Japanese ninjas, and I was like, "Oh no, we got to make them Chinese Lin Kuei." They look like the ninjas look now. I was like, "Oh, we got to change this down." And then John was like, "Okay, cool. I'll do that for you. I'll change them over. I'll put the lore of the Lin Kuei in there." So, we just talked about different things and that, but eventually the thing with Jean-Claude Van Damme did not work out. And then John called me up and he's like, "Hey, that did not," we goof around because John was like, he goes, Jean-Claude Van Damme actually wanted money to do the game. They wanted to just give him a piece of the pie. They just wanted to give him basically a piece of the pie, of proceeds of the game. But Jean-Claude wanted that, and he wanted money to do the game. So he's like, "So will you still help me? We're back to doing 200 games. Will you help me?" And so I was like, "Yeah, let's get rolling." So then, we went back and started creating Mortal Kombat.
Okay. Now, see, I have to ask you about this too.
Okay.
So with regards to that, I do have a question about it. So with the characters that you portrayed, Master Pesina, which one was your favorite to do, to portray? Did you have a favorite at all?
Even though the basic concept of Scorpion and Sub-Zero are like my creation, because I had them change what they look like and I had them be Lin Kuei or anti-Lin Kuei now. But at the time when we were filming, the story was they're brothers and they're both Lin Kuei. And Scorpion kills the father to seize the clan, and then Sub-Zero kills him, and then Scorpion comes back for revenge for that whole thing.
That would have been a hell of a story.
Because he was evil. Yeah, that's the original story. So even though that's that, Johnny Cage is my favorite, not only because he looks like me, but he is the father of all Mortal Kombat characters. John, Tobias, and I sat in a room for 5 days, 8 to 9 hours a day, filming martial art moves to figure out a pathway to the game. And after about a week of doing that, we invited Ed Boon in to take a look at what we had created, to make adjustments. So because he was the programmer, he needed to look at them and put on and make them proper to fit on a hitbox, which I didn't know at the time. But when I met with Ed was like, oh, this is the theory and this is what we're going to look for. So we spent all this time with Johnny Cage exploring. Like, they would be like, okay, how would you, an example is the first day of filming, John put me in front of the camera and he's like, he had a shot sheet, and the shot sheet was like head blows, stomach blows, leg blows. And that was it. So he put me in front of the camera. He's like, okay, do something cool. And so I would just started doing different martial art moves, doing different techniques, like actual kung fu techniques, as well as, regular techniques. And I would do it like 30 times. And then we take a look at the film, and then we go back and we're doing this all day long, taking a look at different moves. And then, and around the second or third day, John was like, listen, do a move 3 times and then change it a little bit. So meaning, like, if I don't know if you can see like this. So if I punch like this and I have this hand here, maybe I'm going to use this, and then I'm going to turn the fist over a little bit to get different types of strikes. So I would do it 3 times and then change it. And then we kept on looking at the video and trying to pick out the techniques and being like, we would write down the technique. Ooh, that's a cool technique. Like even an uppercut. I did an uppercut and he's like, oh, that's a little small, And so I was like, okay, let's do a bigger uppercut. And then in the end, that super big uppercut is a product of a lot of repetition to make it look cool. So there were kicks too. Kicks, just doing all the different kicks, looking at them and realizing that there were, because it was 2D game, a lot of the kicks looked the same. Like a front kick, like a side kick and a roundhouse kick looked the same. An axe kick and a front kick looked the same. So we recorded them a bunch of times, but in the end, when we finally looked at it, the tape, we were like, well, now we know what we need to streamline everything, because when we bring in the next character, which is Kano, we can't spend as much time, because I think in the end we spent about 3 months on just Johnny Cage, and they wanted this game done, and they wanted this game done in 8 months, and I think it took us 9 months. So with Kano came in, it still took like 3 weeks to do Kano. In comparison to Liu Kang, Liu Kang wanted to be the last one because he wanted to see what everyone was doing and then do something cooler. So it was always about one-upping each other. And again, he was a friend of ours. He was a friend of John's and ours. So we got him to come on the project, because even though he wasn't going to get paid a lot, just because he was going to be able to create his character, the Liu Kang character. He was going to help create that. So he was just like, his taping took a day and a half. So if you look at Cage taking 3 months, in the end we streamlined everything. I was like, and again, I was there for basically every recording, making adjustments, because again, we wanted to make every character look unique. So, if you throw a punch and the next guy throws a punch, no, I already threw that punch. You got to change. We could change the punch to this. And so I would kind of keep track of characters and help people develop the personalities of all the characters. So all the characters in 1 and 2 have some of me in them.
That was awesome. Like, because I remember, when at the end, when you finally beat the game after 7 hours of trying to beat Goro, and then you find out Shang Tsung was a cupcake. You're part of the cast, and like I know me personally, but I remember between Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat 2, you did like, I want to say maybe over 10 characters. I know they palette swapped, which means they changed the colors of everybody, but just to know that it was you being Sub-Zero, being Scorpion, being Johnny Cage, Smoke, New Cybot, like, were you ever at a moment where just like, why didn't y'all bring somebody else in? Like, or did you just have that much fun making the game?
So on the first game, Kung Lao, Tony was going to be the ninjas. But the day before shooting, we were lifting weights, and he was taking he had stacked the weights, and when he was taking a plate off, he didn't realize that there was a 25-pound, because we were talking, pound weight in front of it. So he dropped a 25-pound weight on his toe and broke it. And so at that time, because it was at that time, there was no such thing as motion capture. Everything was videotaped because we wanted to look like a kung fu movie at the beginning. In the end, we couldn't do that because of technology, but we wanted to like have everything look real. So everything was done in slow motion, relatively slow motion. So Townie couldn't hold balance on one leg because he broke his toe. So John was like, dude, we're already behind. This was the Scorpion and Sub-Zero was the fourth character that we recorded, that we created. So he was like, we're behind so much. You got to step in. You know everything. You got to just do it. And then so even when we were doing the first game, John was like, you know what? You do 4 more. Do 2. We're going to do 2, but do 2 more ninjas. So we had enough recorded to do 4 Lin Kuei, 4 different Lin Kuei. And later on, we expanded on the idea. But for the first game, we had so many ideas for the first game. We had like tag teams. We had secret character tag teams. We had 3 fatalities for each character. Some of them were pretty gory that didn't make it, but yeah, it was good. It was really, really fun doing the project.
All I gotta say about that is it's just funny because when you said gory, I was thinking in my head at the time like Sub-Zero, grabbing the guy's head and ripping the spine out with his head, it's fresh out of his body. And I'm like, man, this is cool. And I remember being so mad because when I first started playing that game as a kid, I didn't know the blood code, right? So I'm sitting there punching people and like the dust is coming out. I'm like, what is this? It's like, but I remember playing at the arcade, and at the arcade you didn't need all that. It was just like everywhere dripping, whatever. And then the second game comes out and it's like extra blood, extra everything, like acid and people getting blown up. Like it was just crazy. Like I guess where I'm going with that. Like how does that happen?
For the youngsters watching, for those that don't know, if you go buy your Super Nintendo or ask your parents to buy you a Super Nintendo, and
don't cry,
they buy you Mortal Kombat, you're gonna be disappointed because the Mortal Kombat that the Super Nintendo got was highly, highly censored.
Yep,
it was almost along the lines of Disney.
Yeah, and your parents might beat you in it. Just saying.
Yeah.
If they catch you, they're gonna come up behind.
No, actually, you know what? Here was something that got me in trouble. Here's a funny story about that. I actually had the Sega Genesis version, and I knew the blood code. So what happened was we were playing it over my house one day, me and my cousins. My aunt walks in, and she catches us playing it right as I'm doing Johnny Cage's finishing move where he knocks off 3 heads. And she sees this and she's like, what is this? I'm like, oh, this is Mortal Kombat. Not thinking I'm going to get in trouble. Oh, man, this is Mortal Kombat. New game. And she's like, I don't want my kids playing this. Shuts the game off, rips the game out of the system, tells my mom. My mom yells at me. I get in trouble. Man. I don't even get to plead my case. So the only way I was able to actually play Mortal Kombat was when I was over my grandmother's house. Because I knew.
Yeah, because your grandmother.
Because I knew. Yeah. You know what? It wasn't even her. She didn't even know. She didn't even know about the game's violence. She just knew I like video games. Me and my uncle play together. So that's all that mattered. I was happy. She didn't know at all about the blood code, about Sub-Zero ripping your head off with so much force your spine comes out. She knew nothing. All she knew was my uncle bought me this game. We're going to play it together. Boom, the end. And I could just remember the first time I played it over my grandmother's house being so nervous to hear my grandmother walk up and down the stairs. I kept cutting the game off and cutting it back on just so she didn't see it. Just so she didn't see what was going on in this game exactly.
Man.
You
know what? That story, we're you know what? A lot of people, like, especially during this time, don't realize we are so much alike. Meaning I do some events in South America. So way down in South America, basically the same story where they're trying to hide it because they're going to get in trouble. Where they're like, oh, you see, and two, they're all like your age. All the guys when I finally meet them, they're like 10 years old again. They're like, oh my God, I remember I had to hide the game because because I would get in trouble for playing the game, and we would have to sneak in the basement, or I'd have to go to my friend's house to play. But we really that's our era. That is our era.
Yeah. And here's what's even funnier about this. Me and my mom actually, and I'm gonna say shout out to my mom because my mom was awesome for this. Me and my mom, when Mortal Kombat 2, the movie comes out, and then Mortal Kombat 2 comes out a little bit before that. Me and my mom actually sat up and played Mortal Kombat 2 later on, and she actually found out, because she watched the movie, she knew what the game was about, so it didn't bother her as much.
Yeah.
So what bothered me about this whole situation was that everybody got mad when the ESRB came out. Everybody got mad about the fatalities and how much blood was in the game. But then 2 years later, Killer Instinct comes out. There's more blood. There's more blood. More blood in this game. And then from what I researched before we got on the show, Orchid's danger move, if you want to call it that, fatality, where she flashes you were actually supposed to see a boob, but because the ESRB kicked in, you couldn't see, they had to censor it, so they took it out, and it just made you have a heart attack. So my thing was, how do y'all get mad about this? Being Mortal Kombat, how you get mad about this, but the chick in Killer Instinct flashes your boobs and you have a heart attack and die? What's the difference?
No one said anything about Killer Instinct at all. Not one thing. Like no one says that. And then go a little further, Dead or Alive comes out.
They're bouncing.
Yeah.
And they're bouncing. Like, but y'all mad about Mortal Kombat?
Yeah.
And shout out to Dead or Alive, because because Ronnie, I told you I collect. So I actually still have the limited edition first Dead or Alive on Sega Saturn.
Oh,
and
that's what's up.
That's good.
It is. And if you actually go to the options menu, they give you the option. It's not even called, I think it's something else now on Dead or Alive 6.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
On the original Dead or Alive, it just says bounce. And me being, I'm not going to say, okay, for the record, none of us are perverts, but when you see this, you automatically think, you automatically know where this is going. So it's like, hey. And I had to calm myself down, because literally that's the option menu. That's the option setting on Dead or Alive 1 and 2 for sure.
Oh, man.
But it doesn't say bouncing motion. It just says bounce. Yeah. So it's like, but y'all mad about Mortal Kombat, but y'all don't see all the stuff that Japan just shipped out.
Yeah,
right, like everything.
Yeah, man. Some of the anime from the Japan is pretty hardcore, man.
Man, I thought it was just me.
Yeah,
man. And that was what was the beauty of video games. And for those, again, I'm going to throw this out there because a lot of people don't know this. For those that don't know, video gaming is now recognized as a sport. So, and colleges are actually giving out scholarships.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, if your parents are ever yelling at you, telling you can't learn anything off of video games, show them this show and let them know you can get a scholarship for playing Call of Duty and, knowing every spawn location.
Yeah.
Or playing the first Mortal Kombat and being able to cipher Reptile's drunken slurs messages. Because I hated that. Who is this dude?
Yeah, and it's they make over 100,000. A lot of them make over 100,000.
Yeah, I was about to say that. It's like the 2K the 2K tournaments for NBA.
Man.
Yeah.
Like a year.
Yeah.
Just for that one tournament.
Yeah, and if you win, it's even more.
And here my mom was telling me I could never. And here my mama was always telling me I couldn't do anything with video games, and these little a-holes are getting $100,000 just for playing a game.
Yeah. 14-year-olds talking about Look at my check. Like, all
Hey,
right.
you know what? I'm not gonna lie to you. I stopped playing online for a long time because I wanted to beat this kid up from Korea. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend I didn't. It was a Tekken. I think it was either Tekken Tag or Tekken 6, one of the two.
Ooh,
And
Tekken.
this little kid, I don't know who he was, but I happened to see him in every room I was go to.
Mm.
And I'm probably gonna get in trouble for this, but this is exactly how he sounded. We would fight. I would tag him a couple times, and then he would come back with this. Uh, he'd pick Eddie Gordo because he knew he couldn't beat me with anybody else.
Mm.
And the first win he would get with Eddie, oh man, you know how to fight with everyone else but Eddie? What is wrong with you?
Right. You're just like, really? Like,
Look here, you little bastard.
Yo,
Like,
that
I
was the
literally-
worst because, like,
That's
Literally
it.
had to
I
cut
remember
my
being-
mic off.
Yeah, let it out, Mel. Let it out.
I remember
I'm
being in
better
college
now.
and
I'm
like
better now.
playing Halo in college. It was the same
Oh
thing.
man, yeah.
And you had little 8-year-olds beating on you, and you're like 20 years old, and they up real
Getting
late because
embarrassed.
it's like 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Right, just waxing you like, or they found where your respawn point was, and you just
Yeah, done. That's why, for Halo, I stopped playing because it was just like, especially with the sniper, boom, done. Okay.
Oh man, yeah, the sniper gun. Yeah,
Yeah.
see, I had to let it go. I had
Yeah.
to let it go.
My bad, y'all. I'm sorry. I was a sniper guy.
It's all. Hey, I was the one with the sword, so I get it.
Yeah.
And what's crazy was I wouldn't even just go find out where the spawn was. I would just wait till you ran across my screen. It was so much easier than having to leave where they couldn't find me and then
Yes.
go find them. I would just wait. Okay, I see. Oh, he's running across. Bam.
And then you're like, what?
Yep.
Man, traumatized.
And then
Traumatized,
clearly,
So back to Mortal Kombat, the little known fact, right, that people aren't aware of, you had let us know in the bio. So you were the mastermind behind the Scorpion rope death dart. So
Yeah.
how did you come up with that concept, and what made you like just kind of envision at the time the Scorpion's character?
Yeah. For one, we had so much fun doing it. So that was for the fourth character. John told me, "Hey, Ed's got an idea for the game. He wants you to take a lasso around your head, throw it over somebody, and then ties them up, and then you get to go up to him and just punch him." And then I looked at John and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do any Wonder Woman move because we would tease each other. Ed would tease me, I would tease John would tease because we were just always goofing around, and that's why a lot of when you see all the goofing around the game like Toasty or things like that, because we were always goofing around during the game. So I was just like, I competed in martial arts, and one of the weapons was this rope dart, and it's designed to pull horsemen off their horses. So you wrap it around your body and get all this force and then shoot it out. So I was just like, okay, John, that's like a Wonder Woman move. How about if we do this? And then I had a rope dart, and I showed a rope dart. And when I was doing it, and then I was like, and then we could pull them. And as I was pulling them, Rich DeVizio, who's Kano, was there that day. And he looked at me. And when I was doing that, he yelled, "Get over here," like Kano. And he's like, "Now give him an uppercut," like that. And so
That's cool.
So the guy who made Kano, Rich DeVizio, is actually the guy who created "Get Over Here," or coined the phrase "Get Over Here." So we need to do that. So whenever I hear the game, I hear "Get Over Here." I always remember that story of like Rich yelling, "Oh, you guys, so get over here!" Boom.
that's awesome.
That's so
Yeah,
cool. Yeah.
Because
Man.
and that's what and you know what? That's what made the Sega Genesis version so much better, because in the Super Nintendo version, he just says "come here," and it's kind of bland.
Yeah.
If you really hear it, like just pay attention, like, because most of us now we go back and you play it and you hear what you didn't hear before, and it's just like, dude, that has no bass in it. It's just, "Hey, come here." And it's like, wow, really? and then you play a Sega Genesis version,
Yeah.
get hit with the spear, and he yanks you over, and it's a very violent get over here right before the uppercut, and it's just like,
Yeah.
and
That's-
I wish they would have. Looking at Mortal Kombat now, I wish at least up until 3, I wish they would have kept you guys in the games because you guys were such a staple in not only the evolution of Mortal Kombat, but
Thanks.
the importance. Well, it's true. It's true. Like
Yeah.
when you look at Mortal Kombat 1, you see this game is going to be something big. Never saw what you now know as motion capture because that's basically what it was. Even though you guys recorded all your moves, it was basically motion capture because you had to sit there in front of the camera nonstop and make sure every move was crisp. If you're standing next to somebody, it looks like it connected. And you know, you pretty much set the standard for how a video game is supposed to look graphically. And then you stepped everything up in Mortal Kombat 2. The blood, the moves, the story, and in 3 we got it. You know, Shao Kahn just pretty much literally hates all human life.
Yeah.
But not seeing you guys in it for me kind of killed it because it was like,
Yeah.
who the hell is this Liu Kang? Don't get me wrong. I have nothing against Eddie Wong.
Yeah.
Love the guy as a person, but not seeing Ho Sung in there was just kind of a downer because that's who I grew up on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? Two. Yeah, I think in the end, that's basically it, and that's basically the reason we left. John and Ed promised that there were only going to be. Originally, they said they were going to do 200 games, and I told them, "Hey, do 201 and give me a game, and you can make as many games as you want." And they were like, "No, we promise you, we're only going to make 200 games, video games, like arcade games." So when they pre-ordered 10,000 games, I approached them, and I was like, "Hey, you guys said we're going to do 200 games. Now we're going to pre-order. That's not even how many they're going to sell. They have 10,000 people who already ordered the game." And then they were like, "Don't worry, we're going to give you a bonus." Then it went to home. And then I was like, "Dude, you didn't say anything about home." And they're like, "Don't worry, we're going to give you a bonus." So the game was so low budget. I worked for 3 months on the game without getting paid. So I was just like used to this turning the because it's a company, you know, they don't want to pay the little guy anything, even though it's not that much money, you know, it's taken them forever. So finally, during the second game, a bunch of the people who were on the first game were like, "Hey, you guys said we're going to get a bonus." And so in the end, the owner, the higher management were like, "Hey, do you have anything in writing?" You know. And naturally, we didn't get anything in writing, so we left the game. Basically, you know, whoever, you know, my brother, Carlos and Rich got a job. Tony and the guy who did Jax, John Parrish, both my friends who I got them into the game, were promised more work. But in the end, they didn't really get any more work. They just pushed them to the side and went to animated. So just, you know, and again, you heard it here. So if you're in a, you know, sometimes your friends can help you. Make sure you get a contract, get it signed, take it to a lawyer, because if you don't dot the I's and cross the T's, you can get screwed.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking. And like I said, don't get me wrong, Mortal Kombat 3, it was great, but not seeing the same cast that we grew up on, it was kind of like, it's not the same. It clearly wasn't. And what's crazy about it is that I think outside of Mortal Kombat 4, which was graphically terrible.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I think
I like
you guys had. You said what?
I like Shaolin Monks. I thought it was all right.
Shaolin Monks was great as a side story game. That was great. Mythologies was great as a side story game, but just like, again, when you do something and you're a part of it originally, and then things change and you don't see that same cast, it kind of makes it's nostalgic still because, again, we were I'm not gonna say we were at the golden age of video gaming, but we were at the golden age where, you know,
The creator.
Saturdays were for us. That's where we go. We still had arcades. For you kids at
Yeah.
home, you will never
Mhm.
know what it's like to be at an arcade waiting to get a turn
Nope.
to play any fighting game in the
Man.
arcade that's actually working.
Yeah.
Right. Put your quarters up.
Yeah. Line them up
Yeah.
at the top. Yeah.
Yeah, line them up.
Put your
Get
quarter up.
winners.
Put your quarter up.
Let's
Get your
go.
strategy together.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we and again, we're going to sound like old guys, but man, I remember going to the arcade and playing, especially other games, Centipede or Defender or Galaga,
Oh, yeah.
and I would be playing next to somebody who I didn't know. And at the end of the day, sometimes we'd be like, "Hey, you want to try this game with me?" Sure.
You
And
just made a new best friend.
yeah, and then we're going
Yeah.
to games. Yeah, it was a very different era. Everybody,
Yeah.
but yeah, and two, it just that whole physical experience of playing games,
Right.
still there.
Okay. You mentioned stunt work. How did you get into stunt work? And especially now that I'm starting to learn in talking to you, Hakeem, I chatted a little bit with Cynthia Rothrock last night on her podcast.
Cool.
It's like, how do you guys get into stunt work? Because for those that are, again, for our viewers, these are people who look like everyday people, but once you see movies that they're in, now you see the difference. Because honestly, I had no idea you were in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If I'm not mistaken, they had you. I believe Hakeem said you guys were on the Mortal Kombat tour that they had.
I didn't make the tour. I left before them, but a lot of some of the other guys were on the tour. But you know what?
Okay.
It was a different era. I was at a tournament called Battle of Atlanta. Yeah, it was like a huge tournament down in Georgia. I think there were over 1,500 competitors, just competitors.
Wow.
So it was really big. It was like a whole weekend long.
Man.
But there, they were looking for people to do stunt work for a movie. They didn't say what movie, but I was there with Hosung, and Hosung was like, "Hey, if they approach me on a movie, I'm going to put in a good word for you, and if you get approached for the movie, you put in good word for me." And we're going okay, we're going to do that because it's just a community. So Hosung so they approached Hosung. He won. I think he won grand championship that tournament, and they approached him, and then he was just like, "Oh, you got to get these guys. These guys are really good." And then they kind of looked, and I'm like an inch taller than Hosung, so to be a turtle, because they're going to put you in a suit. So to be a turtle, you have to be under 5'7". I think 5'6" they wanted, but Hosung is 5'7", because all of a sudden, otherwise you're going to have a 6-foot turtle. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Bigger. So, I'm 5'8". So they were like, the guys look like, he's like, "Yeah, we'll try him out for some stunts for the bad guys." So I went down to North Carolina, auditioned to do stunts for the foot soldiers, and I did a little acting in Turtles. So I got to, and again, they were looking for martial artists because at that time there wasn't these safety precautions that you have nowadays. Nowadays you have a lot of actors doing their own stunts because there's the technology made them safe. But during Turtles, at one time one of the turtles almost knocked my front teeth out. They were real loose. I had to get a special mouth guard to put in because the turtles. So if you can imagine a hole this big, about 6 inches away from you, that's what they got to look out of because it's a rubber suit. So they can only see what's directly in front of you. So if you ever watch the old movies, you'll see us kind of moving around like this because we can't go from a dead stop in front. We have to have that inertia to see where the kick's coming and the punch is coming and then jump in front of the punch or kick. So that way it looks like action. So that's, we did all this choreographing and would have to do that. So sometimes you would get clipped, and intentionally, but you would get kicked. And these guys too are martial artists who compete. So sometimes they kick you a little hard or punch you a little hard or things like that. But it's a movie and that's what you do. So they hired actual martial artists to do martial arts stunts because, we're used to the techniques and tougher and can recognize thing and do things like that. So yeah, it was really fun. And again, it was really fun. And they picked us off from tournaments. Like, Hakeem, he was at a tournament, compete. They picked them out of there. Same thing with Hosung, pick them out of there. Cynthia I used to see Cynthia at tournaments all the time, competing. So, back in the day, that if you wanted a martial artist, go to a martial art tournament, and you could get plenty.
Nice. That's awesome, man. Because when you look back on it, it's like you never thought that you would see or learn, rather, how dedicated movies were to actually finding the part until we hear your story, we hear Hakeem's story, and we hear Christine Rodriguez's story because we had her on too.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, you don't know until you actually listen to the story. And I think that's the best part of now, because again, we've gotten asked to cover combat sports and martial arts, and the tournaments, the ISKA, the NSKA, are combat sports. So now we're learning that you guys were more well known than we originally thought. And this is like the best part for me.
Yeah,
I don't know about Ronnie, but I'm trying hard not to just jump out my seat.
I know, I'm the same way, man. Because it's funny. As soon as you hit the screen, I'm like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like just like starstruck. You know what I mean? So I'm like, oh, I keep it together. It was crazy.
Hey,
oh man,
he pulled out the shade.
the shade. Oh, this is hitting me different right now, man. This is
but
crazy.
you know what? I got to give him an extra 10 points because he waited and pulled it out so smooth. Like that's an extra 10 off top.
You got
now. Oh
now,
man, this is crazy.
Since you pulled them out, I have to ask, whose idea was? We know that Johnny's a movie star, but whose idea was it for the shades?
You know what? The whole for the creation of Mortal Kombat was really the majority was John Tobias. So he was originally, we were going to have the Johnny Cage character as Michael Grimm, modeled after Daniel Rad from Iron Fist Kung Fu.
Mm-hmm.
So when that was the original idea. So when we went to film Johnny Cage, Ed was like, "Hey, I want to do a satire of Jean-Claude Van Damme." And I was just like, well, I like Van Damme and I'll pay for his movies, but I don't want to act like Van Damme because I'm an actual, a real martial artist while Van Damme, I think, only has like a green belt and he didn't really study martial arts. So I was like, I don't want to do that. And then John was like, if you make a couple of Van Damme moves, I will buy you a pizza every night that you work. And I'm like, you're going to buy me a pizza?
Threaten me with a good time.
All right. So
Right.
I was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll do some Jean-Claude Van Damme moves. And every night I got a pizza. It did not suck, but then again, John was like, no, you need the sunglasses. And he goes, I want you to wear sunglasses. And doing that, for the picture of Johnny Cage. So we went to a local sports store and bought, I think they were $8 at the time, $8 sunglasses. So I was wearing them. And then John was like, you look good. And I was like, wait a minute, we should do this. So what happened was I put the sunglasses behind my back and then I come out and then I put my sunglasses on, you know what I mean? And I do this movement and he's like, oh, do more like that. So then I was like, okay, let's do this. Let me wear the sunglasses out. I'll wave to the crowd. I'll like loosen up and I'll throw the sunglasses out. And eventually that made it into the game where, we're in the old games when it come out and I take them off and I just throw them and I get ready to fight, in the but yeah, but basically,
and you know what,
that
now that I'm thinking about this, we have Mortal Kombat 11 at the house and they brought Kerry Tagawa in. For those of you guys that don't know, Kerry Tagawa is the original Shang Tsung in the movie. Mm-hmm. And they brought him back to play Shang Tsung in the game. I wish, because they keep going back. I don't know, Ronnie, if you played Mortal Kombat recently, but in
Mm-hmm.
Mortal Kombat 11,
Got on
they're
my phone
jumping back
too.
from. Oh man, you doing too much.
Hey, I'm a gamer, man. All day.
Well, I am too, but shit, come on, man.
Right on there.
Well, so they jump back from time to time, from different periods in time, and they brought back Johnny, what looks like would be Johnny from Mortal Kombat trilogy. I don't have a problem with that, but if they were going to do that, I wish they would have called you and brought you back to Mortal Kombat 1 Johnny, because that would have been like a super time warp that nobody would have expected. And I think they dropped the ball on that one. Like, yeah, I get it. I love Shang Tsung, love Kerry Tagawa. He's always been the bad guy in every movie I've saw him in. So, that part was awesome. Now, if they would have brought you back for Johnny, because it was Johnny between Mortal Kombat 4 and Mortal Kombat whatever Mortal Kombat that was, they brought him back after that. And it was present Johnny where he's divorced from Sonya and
had a kid, had a child.
Yeah, and they got Cassie. And I'm just like, where's Johnny from Mortal Kombat 1? That's who you really need. Let's bring his arrogant ass back. That would have made for great content. Hey man, let's look at reality here. That Johnny was arrogant. He was arrogant in the movie. He was arrogant in the game.
Yeah, man, you need that.
Yeah.
I get it, but at the time when you're playing that game and you play against people who really know how to play with Johnny Cage, it's like, man, how much more of a dick can you be?
Right, because if you time it right, that shadow kick.
Yeah.
And now I feel bad and I have to apologize because knowing that you were Sub-Zero, Scorpion, Johnny Cage, and Reptile, I have to apologize to you because I hated Johnny Cage.
You love to hate him. You love to hate him.
Yeah, I do now, but back then it was just like, oh man, you suck. You play with Johnny Cage, I'm not fighting you.
Yeah, you get the nut punch, man. Oh, that
man, and that was the thing that everybody timed perfectly, man. I couldn't stand that. And they timed that more perfectly than they did the shadow kick.
Yeah, and
the uppercut.
That's humiliation. Yeah. When you get that's humiliation because you get that pose. Oh, it's kind of.
And here's another stat that I don't know if you know this, but here's a stat. The video game magazine GamePro actually voted, I think it was back in 96 or 97. They actually voted Johnny Cage's uppercut as the worst, like not the worst, but like the worst uppercut in the game, in all the fighting games, because it was so fierce and it was actually a fatality. So you had the double punch. You could hit him with it, and then at the end of the fight, you get to knock his head off 3 times. And I'm still trying to figure out how they even who came up with that concept. Now that I think about it, that's what I want to know.
Yeah, that particular concept was actually a glitch. It didn't show up in testing until much later. Yeah, so until so eventually it just came out.
That was a glitch.
Yeah, that was a glitch.
How the hell? And they let it fly. That's the crazy part about it.
Because see, as a gamer, you look for glitches.
Yeah.
You look for them.
Yeah.
So I thought that was scripted. I thought that was part of the game. Like that's supposed to be there.
Nope, that was a glitch.
Oh man, what?
Yeah.
Wow.
But you know what?
Okay.
But as a gamer,
I heard it here.
As gamers, we really didn't think that they'd find out all the special techniques, things like that. We really didn't think they would. And man, within a few weeks and within a couple months, there were people playing with jackets over their hands on the joystick so you couldn't see what they were doing. So they can do all the secret moves, and they were just like, oh, so you wouldn't get them. Man.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You had to be like, under the shirt.
Yeah.
Like under the shirt, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That it was real back then, man. We had to. And that was the beauty of playing at an arcade. You had to do stuff like that just to actually have a chance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Then you get that one kid that go out to the little spot at the gaming store and get a little $20 book that was just Mortal Kombat, had all the moves in it, the storyline, the finishing moves.
Yeah.
Then the friendships, which I thought was kind of weird, but
I thought the
then there was
friendship
that.
was awesome.
Yeah.
The
friendship-
babalities.
The babality we could have did without, but the
Yeah,
friendship
we could have
was
done with the
awesome
babalities.
because the friendship gave you that nice side of Mortal Kombat,
Yeah.
True.
especially in Mortal Kombat 2, because
Oh man, yeah.
when you look at and honestly, when you look at the dynamic of Mortal Kombat 2, like we said, more blood, more gore, the fatalities got worse. Now the stage fatalities are worse. Johnny, when you look at it, Johnny has some of the meanest and goriest fatalities in Mortal Kombat 2. He had the torso rip,
Yeah.
the 3-head uppercut, and when you look at that, you have to think these either somebody's really, really mad at their boss in this game, or they just don't want us to go to school the next day when this comes out.
Oh no, absolutely not. And when that stuff happened, it was like you thought about something that went down in school you was mad about.
Man.
Mortal Kombat, right? Or better yet, as you got older, you started getting really, really mad at some stuff happened to you in school or like college, whatever. It was like, I'm going to play some GTA, right? I'm going to have to run over some people with the cars real quick and do all of that. And you come out of it feeling good. You're like, I'm cool now.
Yeah,
I'm all right. I'm all right. And I'm not going to be a real killer in real life. You know what I mean? But
exactly.
I did all that on the game, and I'm cool now. I'm good. I'm calm.
Yeah.
So
real quick. Hey, Ronnie, real quick. Master Pesina, here you go.
Oh, awesome.
Hey, there it is.
Yeah.
Yes. With the soundtrack. Yes. Yes.
That's a glitch I've never seen before.
Oh, man.
That's awesome.
That is so cool.
Oh, my
71,000 points. Oh, my.
Hey, to be honest with you, I kind of wish they bring the point system back.
Yes.
How does this glitch
my thing was
come
like,
across?
I don't even.
How does that work?
Yeah, because once you knew you was tough when you got the double flawless.
Yeah.
When you got that double flawless victory, that was like you intimidated everybody in the room. You're like, I don't want to play now.
That and
That's
to
just
see that now and know that now that it's a glitch, that just makes it all more awesome.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, it started out as a glitch. Yeah.
And what's crazy is that you can literally see the screen lighting back up for him to do it again. I never caught that. And as a gamer, like you said, we look for glitches. I never paid attention to that part.
Yeah.
That just made it more awesome.
Here's another thing that got me though too. So Master Pesina, I was laughing a couple times because I kept thinking those moments when you're playing, you're real serious, you're like dialed in, I'm about to beat this dude, whatever. And then here comes the guy flying across the screen like whoopsie, and I'm like, wait. And you always try to anticipate it. You can never anticipate that dude flying across the screen.
Right.
It's in the most awkward moment.
But you know what? I actually had to do research on that because I had been wondering that myself. The story that I got was that Dan Forden, who was one of the guys that you guys were working with during Mortal Kombat 2.
He's in music.
Okay, and one.
Yeah.
Okay, he did music. Okay. So the story that I got was Dan Forden was doing the music and he would see the test version of the game coming out, so where he knows how to put the music and everything. And I guess you guys would be walking past and hear him say Toasty on the part. And somebody told him you should put that in the game. Or they told him to tell Tobias or whoever it was that you guys should put that in the game. And he said it as a joke from what they said on YouTube. And then it comes to fruition that now he's in the game and he's one like you and like you, Ho Sung, and John Parrish, and you guys are like, he's one of the staples now. You can't see an uppercut and not think Toasty. which was like, and was crazy. I thought he was saying oopsie.
Yeah, me too. Me too. The whole time.
That
I
actually,
really
The whole
thought he was
entire
saying
time.
oopsie.
actually, what happened was he would play with Boone, with Ed. And Ed really loved Scorpion because Scorpion was the first character like that Ed had like that he created a move for. So that disappearing from one side of the screen to the other side of the screen was the first time Ed created a special move. So he really fell in love with Scorpion, and he would play with Scorpion. And when he would play with Dan Forden, he would, Scorpion would blow the flames for his fatality. So he would be like, "Oh, I made you toast," and so So in the end, he'd be like, sometimes he would be playing, and when he did that to Dan Forden, he'd look at him, and he'd say, "Toasty." So so
That's so disrespectful.
yeah, right. So in the end, it's really funny because
Yeah.
Dan is yelling "Toasty" because Ed Boon always used to say that to him, playing the game, testing the game. So it's pretty funny.
Oh man.
So it's
That's
like,
so messed up.
yeah, it's like, yeah.
No, that's not messed up. That's funny. That's funny. The ultimate trash talk just got put
Yeah.
into a game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically,
Over and over again for you to remember.
yeah.
For you to remember what happened to you.
Yeah. 30 years later, it's still out there.
Exactly. It's still there. It's not as popular because these little kids would never get it, but for us,
Yeah, it means
man,
something to us. Yeah. So it's pretty,
now I gotta ask, what is because everybody has one, even I have one, Ronnie has one. What does the trophy room look like? Or what does the office look like?
well, now it's a lot of stuff I put in boxes. So everything I collect now, I put in boxes. I don't have that much stuff out just because to keep it organized. And two, you know how it is. If I put it in a box and take it out once in a while to enjoy it, you don't get busted for buying new stuff. Even though you kind of will, and two, like I go when I go to if I either get it or go to events, I get a lot of stuff and I just bring it out and I just have it hanging around. But like right now, like I have some of the what I'm allowed to keep out is like I have some original artwork from Nintendo. One of our friends, the guy who I don't know if you remember, but during Mortal Kombat 1, you could send in for a comic book.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so John Tobias and another friend of ours, Andy Kadelka, stayed up for 3 days and drew this comic book. So after drawing the comic book, when Nintendo wanted artwork done, John recommended this guy. So this guy, Andy, did all the artwork for Nintendo. So some of that artwork I own.
That would make sense.
Cool.
Yeah,
That would make sense because the manuals.
Yeah.
I wish to God that they would do this a lot better now, or at least put it back in video games because the manuals are what made the game.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, because this is what bugged me about. I'm going to be honest about this. My favorite fighting game as a kid was not Mortal Kombat, but only because around the same time I got hooked on Virtua Fighter.
I like Virtua Fighter.
So when Virtua Fighter came out and I got a Sega Saturn, the first fighting game I got was Virtua Fighter 2. And the manual is what helped tell the story of the game. And that's what I loved about Virtua Fighter, even though Virtua Fighter 2 and Virtua Fighter in the series itself does not explain the game, and I hate it. So for kids, and I'm going to teach my kids this when they're old enough to play, go back and find the games that come with manuals because that's how you learn about the story.
Right.
And now that I know the artwork, because the artwork in the Super Nintendo version of Mortal Kombat 2 was way better than the artwork that they gave Sega.
Yeah, they actually spent. He made a decent money about it, but too, he was a friend, and in the end, he was like, you know what? He goes, they wanted just because it's back in the day, like they wanted they wanted. In the end, he would take that and then he'd layer it. So he was like, this is the original stuff that I didn't have to send in because they wanted the color stuff. So this is how it was. And then I made a copy of it. And then I would add color to each copy that I did. He goes, but all of them are a copy of this one. So I have a couple of those from Nintendo. Yeah. From the Nintendo book, you know, to now they get to tell the story in, you know, in the game actually itself. But before it wasn't in the actual game. You had to get the book and then learn the story like that back in the day.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, and what's crazy is with Virtua Fighter, a lot of people don't know this either. You have to actually watch the animated series in order to get the story.
True.
Because the story is part of the story is in the manual. You won't see it in the game because for whatever reason, I love Yu Suzuki, but Yu Suzuki shafted us on this one. He did, man. Like, if you go back and play every Virtua Fighter game, you see nothing but the credits and then a picture of your character and it says congratulations. That's unfair.
Yeah.
It's so unfair.
Yeah, that's unglorious.
Was.
Yeah.
Show me what happens to my character. I need to know.
Yeah.
See, that was the best part about playing like Tekken, especially when they first came out. I would say maybe Actually, Tekken 2 had the really good, like, you know, cinematic, the cinema at the end.
Yeah.
You beat the game or something like that. So you found, okay, you know, martial law, you know, here's what happens to him while he's in his dojo or whatever. Yeah. Like Paul's story or whatever. And it was so cool because it made you want to beat the game with every single person.
Right. And Tekken
just
2
so you could see what happened.
Yeah, Tekken 2 had a good beginning too. In the game.
Actually, the Tekken series has a great story, period. Like, I never knew somebody's family could be that screwed up.
Right. But you know what? I credit
and
Tekken as to why I even messed with Sony in the beginning.
Yeah, actually, yeah. And what's crazy is not only that, Tekken showed you that you could actually take a shot at your dad and get away with it.
Yeah, you think
that was the only game you saw the son throw the dad off the cliff and presume him dead and just take over the family business.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, you think Thor had it bad, you know?
Actually, you got a point there. You thought Thor had it bad. Go back and look at the Mishima family.
Yeah.
Oh man. You figured between that and the Devil Gene, like it was just all bad.
And,
oh my goodness.
And what's sad about that is they dropped the ball on the movie completely.
Oh, the movie was terrible.
You know what?
Terrible.
I think that's why Marvel does a good job with stuff lately, is because they own the whole thing. You know, with Mortal Kombat or with Tekken, you know, they sell it to somebody, and then now you got somebody who might not be a fan, who just wants to make money back and make money, and they might and be like, no, I could think of a better story. Well, if you can think of a better story, make your own video game, man.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
He makes a valid point on that, because when you go back, and I'm sure, like you say, you're one of the most well-known people in video game history just because of what you did in Mortal Kombat. And it didn't stop there. Like, it didn't start there, it didn't stop there. You were a renowned martial artist who just happened to get noticed and get put in a movie. And then from the movie, you make arguably the greatest fighting game of all time. And when you look at the movies have, with the exception of Mortal Kombat and maybe, and I'm saying maybe, what's the name of that movie? Maybe some animated movies that actually paid attention to the video games.
Right.
You get a poor adaptation of what was really in the game. Like, when you look at Mortal Kombat Annihilation, you want to throw up. You literally want to throw up, because it's like, how do you, and I get it, you're trying to follow the story. This is why I said, because my little sister used to ask me, she was a big Tekken fan. She used to ask me all the time, why don't they turn Tekken into the movie? Because the story is too damn long to tell.
It is. It'd be 8 movies.
Damn, 8. You'd be, man, that's the Godfather saga. Up. Wait.
can hear a little bit. Go ahead again.
I heard him. I heard him clicking.
Yeah, we have to click.
I heard that. Oh,
Nothing. Hold on.
Oh, there we
I
go.
hear you
There you
now.
go. There you go.
I think I got excited and pulled my when we were talking about making Tekken a series. I got excited and friggin' pulled the cord out of my computer.
It happens. It happens. We're not even gonna fault you for that.
Yeah, but
We're not gonna fault you for
made
that.
a series out of that. You know, the fan base of MK and Tekken are old. You know, right now you have people who would pay to buy the series. I would buy the series if you made a series.
And you know,
true to the video game, I would buy that.
right? I would
Yeah.
too. And just because
Absolutely.
I like video games with stories. I
Yeah.
like when I watch fights in boxing, MMA. I like the story as to why they're fighting. Like with Tito and Chuck, they were
Oh, man.
friends,
Yeah,
Great.
and it turned out to be the greatest rivalry in MMA history.
right.
Give me the same thing with my video games and my movies. You did Mortal Kombat, the first Mortal Kombat movie, you did it perfectly.
Did it great.
Mortal Kombat Annihilation comes out, you skip a whole video game just to get to the third one and keep up with the game. You don't
Yep.
have to do that.
Right.
Exactly.
You don't have to keep up with the games, keep up with the story. And that was what I think the makers of the second one forgot, is that these video games are going to come out faster than movies.
Mm-hmm.
Every day, all day. You're not going to keep up with them. Tekken, the animated movie didn't come out for Tekken until '98. By that time, you had Tekken 3.
Right.
Okay, well, we're just going to tell the story of the first one, which is what they did. The first and the second one, they told it to where, okay, we know we're skipping a few, but we're going to catch you up, and here we are,
Mhm.
present day.
Yeah.
Why people don't do this with movies that are adaptations to video games is beyond me.
See, that's what gets me, man. Like, and I think back too about, especially talking about Tekken. So the thing I like most about that was there were some recognizable actors in there that I've seen in so many other projects, and I'm like, okay, cool, and they came from different, walks of life too. So I was a huge Lateef Crowder fan, right? So I remember seeing him in that, and then like he was in, one of the Ong Bak movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So great fight scene because like the temple's on fire and it's like water and all that stuff, and him and Tony Jaa went. That was a great scene, right? So you had that. Then the woman that played Jun Kazama, my first time seeing her was in Karate Kid 2, okay? Because she was the girl that Daniel-san went and saw when he was over in Japan, in Okinawa. And people don't know about that because there was that. And then also she was in Day After Tomorrow, which is another great movie.
Yeah.
She was one of the meteorologists in that. So that was pretty cool. Then you had the random, so the dude that played the black ninja, right, from Tekken, he was in like, Soul Food, the TV show, you know what I mean? Stomp the Yard, for those of y'all who know about movies like that. So they had different characters and different actors that were coming in to play this part. And I'm like, okay, cool. But then the storyline and how they did it was just terrible. And I was like, dang, all right, well, never mind. Because like it was so many recognizable faces, right? And I'm like, this is great. And it hit me the same way that
possibly go wrong.
it hit me the same way Street Fighter did. It was like,
man,
this what
don't
y'all
even
doing?
bring up Street Fighter.
It's like, this what y'all doing? This what y'all doing right now? It's okay.
Oh,
So
I'm back in the day. I was a big Street Fighter fan.
Me too.
I was until the movie came out.
Man, hey, but have you seen the newer one though? The Assassin's Fist.
I've seen parts of it. I've actually
that's cool.
Okay.
Truth be told, I'm actually waiting for them to actually finish Mortal Kombat Legacy because I'm stuck on season 2, and we've been stuck on season 2 for a few years now. But I want to see what happens in the tournament. The second season, the first season of Mortal Kombat Legacy, everybody's background is being told, which is fine. I like that.
Okay.
And it's being told in a real world setting.
Yeah. I like the fight scenes in it. It looks good.
I like the fight scenes too.
Really good, yeah.
And then, quick update, not to cut it off, but quick update, Ronnie, you're gonna be mad. Indians lose to the Royals 8-6 So they dropped two
Come
and three.
on.
They dropped 2 and 3 to the Royals. They were in first place going into today, but they probably just lost it again.
See, you get a sweep going, and then you do this. You know what? All right. We're gonna talk about that later.
COVID's messing everything up, man. I get it.
Messing everything up. Dang, man, you just had a sweep. Like, sorry,
they didn't actually have the sweep. They actually dropped one. They dropped the first one. They won yesterday, and then today they were going into today. They were in first place with the White Sox. And with this loss, they probably just lost it again unless the White Sox lost, but I doubt it. But
all right.
To go back to your point, the first season, they're telling everybody's background. Raiden's a nut bar. Well, he's stuck in the nut house. I'm not going to say he's a nut bar. Raiden's stuck in the nut house. Liu Kang loses his girl. By the way, the guy who plays Liu Kang is actually DK from Tokyo Drift.
Hey.
I didn't recognize
Scorpion.
I didn't recognize that. That's correct. Okay.
Yeah. Scorpion is Kazuya in the Tekken movie. Who am I missing? Sadly, Michael Jai White does not reprise his role from the trailer, the 8 or 10-minute trailer that they made. So there's no Michael Jai White. But I mean, he's not consistent. I'll say that he's in it, but he's not consistent.
Right. I wonder if it's contractual, just something contractual.
From what I gathered was he started with the trailer, which was supposed to convince New Line to remake Mortal Kombat. They said no, but they'll give him a web series. So they gave him a web series that was aired on YouTube.
Yeah. And
he got all of these actors, well-known actors, because, like I said, Scorpion is Kazuya from Tekken.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's story, like I said, is being told from a real-world perspective. Liu Kang loses his girlfriend, which drives him insane and turns him into a murderer. Mark Dacascos plays Kung Lao, who's back in the temple as a monk.
That's cool.
Liu Kang seeks help from him. Kung Lao turns him down. They end up going to the tournament by 2 different Shang Tsungs. And the reason I say it's 2 different Shang Tsungs is because in the first season, he's young. He kind of looks like the Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat 2, the game, facially.
Okay.
And then in the second season, it's Kari Tagawa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it made sense, but they left us in limbo. Like, what happens?
Yeah, but Shang Tsung shifts shapes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, if you're gonna do this, I wish they would do this with every video game that actually made a statement. And what I mean by that is you go back, and it's mostly been fighting games, if you want to be honest. Outside of Call of Duty and Halo, it's been fighting games that have actually made the jump from video games to movies.
Yeah.
So what I would like for them to do is, well, they're already in the process of remaking Mortal Kombat. They need to remake Street Fighter.
Please remake that.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I would like to see a Killer Instinct movie because I would love to see how that story turns out. And I want to see, believe it or not, this is going to sound weird. I would love to see a Tao Fang movie.
Okay.
I would love to see that, how that played out.
Yeah, I wonder if John still owns the rights for that,
If he does, he should get on that, because that would be, if he plays it and has them follow the story and follow the movie, or like follow the story to the T and adapt it to movies.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good movie to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the storyline of it. I just, I think when they were releasing the game, it just had so many, the person who took it and actually put it in a cartridge, I heard, messed a lot of things up.
Yeah. But sadly, we as fans can't do anything about it.
Yep.
Now, Master Pesina, I do want to capture, a little bit of the, human aspect here. So so many of us, man, we played the game and like we seen your face on, the actual arcade game and all of that too. And it's just an honor to be able to, yep, it's just an honor to be able to, have this conversation with you. A lot of us want to know too, like, you know, who are you in real life? Like, besides, teaching and things like that, what's it like being at home, like in the home of Daniel Pesina? What's the everyday like?
Their everyday is probably because I am a geek, but I'm also a martial art geek. So I do martial art I often tell my students, don't live your life like I did, but practice your martial arts like I did. Because I let it really, like in the morning, I wake up, go to the gym for a little bit, then I have clients, and I am still, at this point, I'm 62 years old. I
never knew that. I was still thinking
Me neither.
late 40s, early 50s at that.
Yeah, thanks. But I still I'm a hands-on person. Like with all my lessons, I do it with them. Like most of the time, I do the movements and do that. Or if they want to do techniques or sparring or throwing, I'll still do all that stuff. I'll still, if they want to throw me a little bit, I'm all right as long as get the mats out. Okay, I'll take a couple falls or whatever. So I'm pretty much a martial arts geek, so I do that and I practice. And I am a big besides video games, I am a big horror fan. I like scary movies.
Really?
Yeah, I really watch a lot of scary movies. I like yesterday, big fan of Lovecraft Country, which is on right now. Before that, I was a Walking Dead fan, but now I think I like the series, the graphic novel, but right now I think it's just too much repetitive. They seem to be always getting in the same problem that they just solved comes back. But as far as that is that, but besides doing all that stuff, just like to hang out. Like I still to this day, Sunday I had dinner with Kung Lao. So we still, the old crew still gets together.
That's cool.
Yeah, whenever we can
That's
get together. Awesome. I just talked to, before I was on this call, I was talking to Kano. He called me up and he's like, "Oh, you got to watch, what was it? It was some Netflix series. And I forget what it's called, Turn or something like that. Turn. It's about the history of the U.S., spies in the U.S., and they have a series.
Wow.
But they'll call me up out of the blue. Like a couple weeks ago, Hosan just called to say hi. Ken called to say hi. I talk to Jax once in a while. I talk to Philip once in a while. So yeah, we still kind of get it together whenever we can. Go out to dinner or have a couple drinks.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so in the end, my life is just probably like anyone else's. But my work is my martial arts, so I practice a lot of martial arts.
And Ronnie Goofy behind wasn't the mood of Columbus. We'd probably be hanging out on Sundays too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because a little background, Mel and I actually were on the same team too in high school as well, football. So this is a lifelong thing, and it's just been really good to be able to have this part of the journey, be with him and being involved with this man. So this is cool. But yeah, who knows what the future holds? You know what I mean?
Man, I don't want to hear that. You've been saying that since MRI days. I don't want to hear that stuff.
But you do. You never know where life's going to take you. You know what I mean? You
and then you got married. I met your wife. She's not the type that's just going to let you out all willy nilly, man. It's always got to be the who are you hanging with? Like, I don't get into trouble no more.
Don't you need to get out of the house for a while? It'll come to that time.
Yeah.
But now just because you brought this up, and this really surprised me. So now I'm curious. You said you were a kung fu movie fan. You're a horror movie fan. Favorite horror movie, favorite kung fu movie of all time.
Favorite kung fu movie of all time would be a tie between Five Deadly Venoms and Master Killer or 36 Chambers. So for that, for a horror movie, man, I like them all. I like the supernatural horror movie. I don't like the slasher movies because I never see why, I don't see why they never get rid of Jason or Freddy or any of those guys. I'm like, dude, those guys are just like not, that scary. Like demons and ghosts are really, really scary.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I'm gonna say
I can understand that.
I'm gonna say for the horror. I think for horror at this moment, I'm gonna say something like Jeepers Creepers. You ever see that?
Man, see, you playing too much, man.
Jeepers Creepers.
You playing too much.
Jeepers Creepers, because no excuse for that creature to be running around killing everybody just because it can. They let it run around every 27 years to kill people and eat them, and then you can't stop it. That type of creature really sucks. You know what I mean?
And that's what made me never want to go to the country.
Yeah. No. I'm on a picnic.
Ronnie, you laughing, but have you ever sat down and watched these movies, like these Jeepers Creeper movies? This dude
not all the way
like,
through. I need to.
Man. And the crazy part about it is, I saw the first one. I saw the first one on accident. Literally was flipping through channels and I was just seeing this green, ugly looking thing with a Jerry curl eating people.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then it had the little skinny dude from Dodgeball. So I'm like, oh, this might be a decent movie. So I'm watching this movie and he finds where all the dead bodies of the missing people have been. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. How do you just stumble upon a dude's private stock of food for like ever?
Yeah.
And then come to find out, just looking at the bodies and finding this dude hiding spot that made you a marked man, then you get caught. And he skipped dude alive at the end. I was like, wow, who does that?
The guy who wrote The Ring had a good phrase. He goes, sometimes you don't need a reason for there to be a scary story. Sometimes bad stuff happens to good people.
Clearly. I never saw that dude again.
Right.
No, he just happened.
Well, you saw him.
Yeah, he on something, and then
excuse my language with this, but then the most fucked up part of the movie is the end. After you see the dude that got skinned alive and the little creeper dude is sitting at the table with a plate and he then moved over and looked at the dude from the skin. They start playing this old 1940s boogeyman song.
Right?
And it's not even the part about the movie is not even scary. Like the song itself is not scary. What makes it so damn creepy is that the song itself is upbeat.
It's and it's just that. Oh, and then when you hear it, you just now whenever I hear it, I don't hear it often, but I'm just like looking over my shoulder. I'm like, oh man, no.
Have you heard the boogeyman? I'm like, wait, what? Why is this song upbeat? Why would you do this to people? Right.
So So I like a lot of horror movies. Zombie movies I like. Yeah, but I'm going to say that type of situation is always messed up.
And you know what? Now that you brought that, I gotta agree with that because playing the game, playing Resident, I blame Resident Evil for this because playing Resident Evil made me feel like this shit could really happen. And now, now I'm sitting up here like, all right, we got to start loading up on guns and stuff because we can't be out here and then the zombie outbreak comes because then we're gonna be screwed.
Dude, that shit's gonna happen. Some corporation's gonna be messing up and it's gonna get out of hand because that's the way it always is.
And you know what's funny, Ronnie? Up here, there's actually
it's true.
Yeah, and I was telling I can't find it in my phone, but I remember taking a picture of it. But there's actually an Umbrella Corporation car that drives around from time to time up here in Cleveland. Yeah, dead serious. If you're driving through like South Euclid, Beechwood, you'll see it. It's once every so often, like literally once every so often. But it drives around, and and I'm like, y'all up here fucking with people, but maybe I should
That
go
is
get a gun.
messed up.
Yeah.
Man.
It's got the colors. It's got the colors and everything. It's literally a white car. On the driver's side, it's got the umbrella. It says Umbrella Corp underneath an actual umbrella with the red pallets on some of the parts of the umbrella, and then man, it looked just like it. It
How you
looks
gonna mess with
just
folks
like
like
it.
that?
Yeah.
I remember seeing it one time, and I was like, "Yeah, y'all fucking with people. Don't think I don't know."
Yeah. Jax is a big Resident Evil fan. I like it too, but he's a really big fan. Yeah. Yeah. No, because that's mutation, man. That stuff is going to happen. I'm telling you. Some company's going to be messing around and mess things up, and then all of a sudden, the whole city's going crazy. Get infected people. You got to be prepared for that.
Nope, because I was actually playing Resident Evil 3, and I don't want no parts of nothing else Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
Because that was the only Resident Evil I didn't play, and I didn't realize how bad it got as far as the games go. Yeah. Like Resident Evil 1 and 2, I was like, okay.
I like the first.
Like Resident.
I like
Nemesis. Nemesis was like,
man,
level.
why you ain't tell me about him, dude? I was like, okay. I'm like, Mr. X was bad because I played 1, I played 2, I played 4, 5, and 6. And 6 wasn't really scary to me. It was more frustrating than anything. So I was like, okay, I didn't play 3. Let me play 3. I'm playing 3. I'm like, what could possibly be worse than Mr. X? Mr. Nemesis shows up. He threw me across the room. It was like, I just paused the game and everybody that I knew that played Resident Evil 3, I just started calling him and like, why y'all ain't tell me about this big ass dude named Nemesis? Man, we thought you knew. No, I didn't know.
And you thought beating Goro was hard?
Yeah. Man.
Nemesis
I thought beating Goro was like, I thought beating Goro on the arcade was damn near impossible. Nemesis just makes me not want a zombie outbreak, period.
Right.
Oh, when Nemesis, I stopped playing. I was like, you know what? This is my last go around right here.
Yeah.
So I would try and exactly. And I was like, look, I'm done.
You come back and then you're like, oh, I got a new strategy. Come back and then you
and that strategy don't work.
And you got to do it from scratch every time. You can't be like, all right, I was on the third scene, in the second chapter. I'm gonna jump here and then go. No, you got to start from the beginning every time because it's got to be something different, like some health pack you didn't get, or some kind of like herb you didn't mix up.
Or some gun you didn't get that you needed.
Or a gun, or like you had to do all of that different. You're like, I got to do something different. Something different.
And the sad part about it was I wasn't paying attention to the tutorial. The tutorial tells you everything, and now I know I'm starting to pay attention more now. Guns don't do nothing against Nemesis, so now I'm just like, why ain't y'all telling this shit? Why didn't you put this shit at the beginning? Not even at the beginning of the game. Why didn't you put this on the cover? So we know from jump not to shoot and just run. Because I sat there and loaded every.
Sometimes,
Or put that in the manual.
Gun, I put every gun I had into him. I put every gun I had into him. And then I looked at the tutorial, and the tutorial said, before you start, note, guns do not work on Nemesis. I was like, really? You guys suck.
Right.
You guys suck. Now, before we go any further, because you said Five Deadly Venoms and 36 Chambers were your favorite martial arts movies. Why those two? Just out of curiosity.
Two, those were the early days of what we saw, but I think I really enjoyed one for Five Deadly Venoms. I like the story behind it, how there are 5 students who don't really know each other's identity. So it's more than a kung fu movie. It's like a mystery. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a puzzle. Who's this or who's that or things like that. And even though, and in the end, you get 2 unlikely characters teaming up to beat the other ones. So I really like it. And in 36 Chambers, I really enjoy the training stuff. The training to show the different ways of training for martial arts. Because in the end, it's not really just about, doing this move or that move. It's like the intense training. Like he's working dummies, and he's going through these chambers. And in the end, he doesn't really think he knows martial arts, but he did learn martial arts. He kind of just. So I enjoy that parts of the story. I think that's what makes them one of my favorites. I like other ones, but I think mainly that you know what I mean. It's like,
and I completely understand because my martial arts movie collection, I need to actually expand on it. But being a martial artist myself, I do a lot of research, and a lot of my research goes into finding out how these movies came about. And I learned that it's originally titled Death Chambers, but it's called Shaolin Temple here in the States. Now, for those that don't know, everyone watches Ip Man now, who Master Ip, we all know, taught Bruce Lee Wing Chun. What people didn't know, and what I didn't know until I actually watched the movie Death Chambers, was that a woman invented Wing Chun. And she got into a fight. She killed a guy. This is what I like the movie. Even though it doesn't tell her story completely, you find out how this particular style was invented.
Yeah.
She got into a fight. She kills a guy. She fled to the Shaolin Temple. And as the movie progresses, T. Lung and David Chiang are part of the Imperial Army. And they lose a fight. They end up at Shaolin with a couple other guys. And they meet her, and she teaches T. Lung Wing Chun. And the tie-in with that is that they don't say, it's unknown rather, whether she made it out of the temple when they burned it.
Yeah.
So that, for me, that made me want to go look into the style a little bit more. And you see the lineage. Ip Man, I think her name is Wu Mei, if I'm not mistaken. I got to look that up. But to know that that's how this style got started, awesome. My other favorite movie of all time was Fong Sai-yuk, The Legend of Fong Sai-yuk. It's a Jet Li movie. The story behind that one was, and again, being a martial artist, have to look this stuff up. The folk tale behind that was the reason he could take a punch so well was that his mother, when he was born, broke every bone in his body and soaked him in she soaked him in?
Yeah.
She soaked his body in something, and it made his skin look like bronze. And I was like, well, there was no child services back then, so you can't really go after her.
Nope.
And even then, if you went after her, she'd beat you up too, because she was a martial artist.
Yeah.
So those were my two favorite movies. So I completely understand, because just learning. Oh, I have to throw in an honorable mention is 5 Element Ninjas. And that was a good movie too.
Yeah. Those are classics, man.
Yeah, they are. It's crazy because you mentioned 5 Deadly Venoms. I mentioned 5 Element Ninjas. And there's one character in there who's like consistent in everybody's Shaw Brothers movie at that time, and that's Lo Mang. And he's the tragic hero of every movie that he's been in.
Yeah.
Kid with the Golden Arm, 5 Element Ninjas, 5 Deadly Venoms. He dies.
Yeah.
Why?
I think in the 5 Element Ninjas, don't they pin him to a tree or something?
No, they pin him to the master's wall. They pin him to the wall.
There you go. Yeah.
He stabbed him in the stomach, and he stabbed him so hard it went through, and he stuck to the door. And the master can't get out.
Yeah.
And the kid with the golden arm, he gets blinded. He get glass stuck in his eyes, and then the lady secret agent stabs him in the back. And then 5 Deadly Venoms, he's the Toad, who's obviously the best fighter in the game, or in the movie, he's the best fighter, and they find a way to kill him. And I was just like, why would y'all kill off the best character?
Yeah. But that's so Chinese. The hero always dies.
Man, that's not fair. Like, why would you have to? Why of all you got to keep? kill the dude that can't fight. You don't kill the best dude in the movie.
But he's got to be avenged because he's righteous. You know,
That's like letting Tim Couch stay on the team, and you've got Bernie coming back out of retirement.
Man.
Like, tragic stuff. Oh man, that's crazy. Well, we do have a couple of topics that we got to touch really quickly, but if you want to stay on with us, you're more than welcome to. If not, we completely understand. Everybody's busy. Update for you guys. The Lakers are down by 1 to Houston, 33-32. It is the second quarter. Wow. Yeah, second quarter.
Yeah, that's
and
half scores.
It's getting wild in the NBA.
Yeah.
But Smooth, you brought up a topic you wanted to bring up, and I'm anxious to hear it now because I remember you getting mad about it earlier.
So it threw me off, man, because I wasn't expecting this, but there was a report that came out today. It talked about Colin Kaepernick, and
Right.
apparently they put him on the new Madden 21 game, and he is a starting quarterback ready to go pretty much. So they got his ratings up and everything, and he's on the game as a free agent, ready to sign. Now, of course, we all know the controversy behind that and how the last 4 years have been and what he's done. But at the same time, it's like, okay, Madden all of a sudden throws him on as an actual player that you can put on your team. However, the NFL has not made a such move or even thought to do any kind of, like, I guess, inside job, I would say, like in the offices or anything like that. Even after you publicly make a statement saying you want to improve, race relations and stuff like that. When I saw this, I was like, okay, is this something that is happening that they're not telling us? Or this is simply like EA saying, hey, because with them having, the different platforms out there and how a lot of different sports are making these statements or whatever about BLM and stuff like that, with the NBA clearly being on board and whatnot, is this just their version of doing that? Or do we know or have a feel like, back, or especially not back, but like, do we have a feel coming up soon here that we may actually see a possible signing of him to an actual team? Because playing on my emotions, honestly, when I saw that, I was like, okay, is he actually going to be on a team, or y'all just like, oh, we know he exists and he still got some years. Let's throw him on the game to make people happy. Like, who knows? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say this. I read it when you sent it to me. I read it, and honestly, in pro wrestling terms, I immediately thought it was a work. And for those that are watching, I don't care what you say. You can argue with me you can argue with me on this about next week's show. But pro wrestling is a sport because and the reason I say anything professional is a sport. If you can't wake up every day and do it just on a whim, you are not a professional. Not to say that you can't do it, but if you're getting paid to do it, that means you are a professional. Not a lot of people can wake up and do a pro wrestling. Not a lot of people can wake up and be a martial artist overnight. Not a lot of people can do football, basketball, baseball overnight. That means it's a profession. It's your career. So when I use the term work, that means it could be true. It could not be true. You don't know until you see it.
Exactly.
I believe it's a work because EA Sports could have been done this. If they really wanted to make a statement, they could have put him in when he got blackballed from the league 4 years ago to the day. They could have done it then. They didn't. They let him sit out every game that came out from 2014 or 2016 on. And it's been 4 years since it happened. Do I think it's a good thing to see him back in sports games? Yes. Do I think EA Sports and the Madden franchise is full of shit on this one? Absolutely. Because there were plenty of things that could have been done. Nike, and we all know this, 90% of every major sport in America has Nike related products in it has noticed that Kaepernick was serious about his stand. They put him in commercials. They gave him his own shoe line. Whether or not he cares about the money is his business. I'm going to leave it at that. But to see the steps that Nike took to say, we're behind you, and we all know, not to get racial, but this is the truth. Nike's owned by a white man. He saw it. Roger Goodell turned a blind eye to it. He knew why Kaepernick was sitting at first and then kneeling. He knew why. He did nothing.
Yeah, and let people.
And I hate to say it like this. But you might as well say it. He owns the league because he's the commissioner. So that means he's in charge of overseeing every little thing in detail. You knew because the media showed you this is what he's doing. He even said, this is why I'm doing it. It didn't affect his play. Not once. The team, that 49ers team, after they made the Super Bowl, was bad. They got rid of key players. They got rid of key linemen that he needed. Of course, his play is going to go down after that. So, and I hate that other platforms use his statistics as a case. Who cares? The bigger problem was you saw it, you knew it existed, you did nothing to resolve it. Now, all of a sudden, you're seeing minorities get shot, killed by police. You've seen protests, you've seen riots, damn near cities have burned to the ground. And now all of a sudden, you want to make it about, okay, what can we do to make this better? You should have been doing this, especially EA. You know, if you're EA Sports, you know, majority of your customers are of the minority. Meaning, you've got a black person on every 2K game cover. You've got a black person, for the most part, you've had at least one black person on every or just about every Madden game that's come out since 2001. And all of a sudden, you see Kaepernick take a stand for something that's literally affecting us every day, and you do nothing until now. I'm not sold on you.
Yeah.
Now, if you tell me in a week's time EA is going to sit with Kaepernick and actually talk to him, okay, I'll believe it. But until then, I'm not buying anything EA is trying to sell me on this. You got to do better.
Yeah, I agree. It seems a little sketchy, and because too we know kind of what it's about. It's about money. So they see him. Hopefully he's making something off of this, or things like that, or they have something in it. We can only hope that they have a plan. But to put faith in them, it's a little foolish. I would say a little foolish. Like you said, you got to give and understand that they got big wheels. It might take them time to turn, but let's get those wheels. If they're gonna give us hope, get those wheels turning. You know, get everything going. But otherwise, I would say you just got to sit back and see, because that can't be trusted. And like you said, they misled people. You know what? He was kneeling in protest for police brutality, not necessarily all the police, and nothing against the military. You know what I mean?
Right.
But they
sat down.
They let people lie and do that. And he's, you know, they're all responsible for that.
And he sat down with a Marine and actually talked about, and we've talked about this on the audio shows. You know exactly. I have military parents. Both my parents were in the military. Hi, mom. Hi, dad. They've said the same thing. When the brother is fallen, they kneel. They put his boots together. They put his weapon on top in his boots. They put his helmet on top of his weapon. They kneel. Where is there a problem in that? It wasn't about the flag. Even though the national anthem was written by a slave owner, It's not about the flag. It's not about the national anthem. It's about a protest to what's going on in real life. You may not like it. Yes, Colin Kaepernick was raised by white parents. So what? He himself is still a man of color. And
Yeah.
because he is still a man of color, famous or not, if a policeman does not know he's famous and just decides to treat him like he treats everybody else, we could be having a different conversation because Colin Kaepernick could not be here.
Yeah. Yeah.
George,
look at in Wisconsin, right? One of the senators in Wisconsin they handcuffed him, took him all the way to jail until somebody there realized, hey, that guy's a senator. What? Oh, yeah, right. They didn't bother to check. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's just like, holy cow, you guys are freaking putting a senator in jail for holding up his First Amendment right. You know what? You guys got to check that stuff.
Not even that. How do you miss running his information and knowing that he's a senator? How dumb do you have to be?
Because some don't care.
Exactly. Exactly. Think about all the years of training that goes into something. We're not a professional football player until we graduate college or get into college. In order to get into the NFL, you have to be 3 years removed from your high school senior season.
3 whole years.
You could be 17, graduate early. You can't get into the NFL until you're 20, 21.
Yeah.
Master Pesina, you can't, as a martial artist, you can't achieve master status until you reach black belt status.
Yeah.
That could take anywhere from 3 years, because some people like to accelerate it, but that could take anywhere from 3 years to 10 years, even 20, depending on how you live.
Yeah.
A beautician in cosmetology school has to go through more training, more hours training than the average policeman.
Yeah.
Nurses,
doctors.
And
doctors got to go through a whole state. Lawyers got to go past the bar in order to be a lawyer.
Yeah, if you look at
practice.
If you look at all the other countries that we like to hang out with and call equal, you know what I mean? To be a police officer, you do have to have most of them are at least 2 years, some more, some 4-year degrees have to accelerate to do that. And understand that, they're under a lot of stress and things like that, but that's all politics. You know what? Design it better.
Here's the thing. Get
somebody who's even toned,
I kept this until tonight, but I had saw a post that said Blue Lives Matter, and she had the little blue line in between the flag and the badge and everything. There's no such thing as a blue life, and here's why. Now, before I get into this, anybody that's watching this or is going to share this, I am not against policemen, but as a black man in America, I have had a gun pulled on me by a policeman. I have been handcuffed by a policeman on mistaken identity. I have even been pulled over because I fit the description and wasn't even knowledgeable that something had even happened in the remote area. So with that being said, blue lives don't matter because being an officer of the law is a choice. That means you woke up one day and decided, I'm going to be a police officer. It's not like you were in ancient China, ancient Europe, and your family was in a long line of soldiers in the army, knights, or whatever kind of noble warrior pantry that you go through. Being a cop in today's America is a choice. You have an option. There's plenty of other options you can do to be successful and have a career. If you choose to be a cop, that means you're smart enough, or you should be smart enough to know everything that entails being a cop. Yeah. I'm not saying your life doesn't matter. I'm saying you chose to put your life on the line when you woke up and decided, I want to be a cop. I woke up one day and decided I wanted to be a football player. I knew the risk. Ronnie, you knew the risk.
Sure
and
did.
now, with CTE, after we've been played, we figure out CTE is why most of these players now have gone crazy, committed suicide.
Yeah.
You know, that was the choice that we made.
Yeah.
Are we going to regret it? Are we going to pay for it in the long run? Possibly. You know, but that was still a choice we made. You made a choice to be a cop. I'm not going to tell you you can't be a cop, but you can't sit up there and use that as an excuse to say, well, I was under a lot of stress. He didn't obey commands. Listen,
Yeah. My wife hollered.
you,
My wife
I was
hollered.
just saying,
Yeah, you can't use the excuse. My wife hollered at me, so I decided to take it out on you.
yeah,
That's
you
basically
know, that's not our fault.
Right.
That's not our fault.
yeah. You got to get, in order to get respect, you have to show respect, or you have,
Right.
yeah, you can't just respect somebody out of the blue. If you show that if through action, that's how you get respect. You know what I mean? So, and also through action, that's how you get fear. You know, just
Right.
that if you have a bad experience, if your neighbor's dog bites you 3 times and you're afraid of dogs, you go.
I'm not walking towards my neighbor house no more.
Well, too, you're going to stay away from all dogs. Doesn't matter if they're friendly or nice, because guess what?
Yeah.
They're all going to bite you. So you're better off just running away or staying away. You know, so it's kind of it's basic, but kind of similar. I'm gonna have to agree with you. I have in my family, there's we have some cops and stuff like that, but in the morning they chose to do that job.
Right.
You know,
And like I said,
and that job, one of the rules for that job is to uphold the law and have standards. Now, if you decide maybe cops should get more sick days, because if you decide one day that you woke up on the wrong side of the bed and can't fulfill that duty, maybe you should just stay home and get a sick day. And in other words, not breaking the law. And guess what? I'm all for that. Take some money out of the politician's pocket and put it and give it to the cops to have more sick days. But this stuff about all this violence or people going out there and no offense to anybody or fans like that, but you have a Second Amendment right, but there's a First Amendment right. And if the First Amendment right goes, the Second Amendment and Third Amendment, Fourth Amendments will go really, really quick. So you can't, people are protesting and they have the right. We got a 5-day work week because people protested and died in the streets fighting for a friggin' 5-day work week. And you're like, oh, they couldn't protest. No, there was violent protest to get that. There was violent protest for people to get vacation days. There
was violent protests to get everything we have now in America. There was a violent protest because Europeans were feeling they were being treated unfairly by the king and the monarchy, and they got sent over here. It wasn't like they just said, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna take a vacation in America." It's not how it worked.
Yeah. The Caucasians here got kicked out of their country to come here. They didn't come here voluntarily. They got thrown on a ship. Here's a ship. Go.
Yeah. If you don't like how we treating you, go to America.
Yeah.
And my thing with this is, like I said, I am not against the police. I don't have any ill will towards the police, but here is a valid point. When you've been in situations like me and Ronnie have been in, and it's become racial, and you had no intention of making it racial, you don't trust the police. And I don't think the police get that. You took an oath to protect the law, uphold the law, serve the people. That's what it said, protect and serve. There are laws in place. Your job is to protect them and the people. If you have the people afraid to trust you, you're not doing your job. And that's not for all cops. No, it's for those cops that just wake up thinking that they have a badge and a gun and they have power. You're not upholding the law. You're being a dick. Colin Kaepernick paid attention to this. And let's be honest, when you go out further west, outside of California and Seattle and Portland and those cities on the West Coast, there ain't a lot of black people. I had a friend who went to college. He didn't even go to college. I had a friend who went to go play arena ball in Montana. He said the same thing everybody else says when they go to a college or a team that's in an area with abundance of white people. If they don't see me in a uniform, they don't acknowledge me. So, what do you think somebody's going to feel as a person of color when they're walking down the street and they see the police and the police automatically assume that they're up to no good and they've probably done nothing wrong?
Gotta run.
As a man of color, I have a right. If you pull me over, I have a right to ask, what's the problem? What did I do? It's your job as a cop to tell me what I did wrong. Your license plate's expired. Your tail lights out. You missed the stop sign back there. If you don't tell me that, you don't deserve any respect because that's not fair to me. You feel like you deserve respect, but you can't respect me enough as a person to tell me what I've done wrong.
Yeah, that's shady. That's against the law, and but in the end, but right now with all this strife and it has to happen. In order to change, there's got to be growing pains. So right now we're going through it, and everybody's got to stay strong and meet in the middle. But these protests have to continue until there can't be, like we were just talking about with Kaepernick. We can't just assume that he's going to come back and play, even though he has a few good years. We can't assume that they're going to do that because
right.
we just don't know, because they have not proven that. They've proven the opposite. So, with the EA, hopefully something comes out of it positive, because it's about time that somebody strong or somebody with power steps up and shows, and shows some kind of this recognition that we're, if we're going to be equal, we got to be equal.
Yeah.
If we're not going to be equal, then just say that, and then we can just know that. But not.
They've been saying it for years. We just have been trying to be nice about it.
Well, that's what the thing is. They've been saying both for years, and they got to stop that shit. Sorry, they got to stop that.
No.
They got to stop that stuff, and guess what? And give respect, and you'll get shown respect.
In all honesty, you saying how you feel is a breath of fresh air, because again, we're a show here. We don't mind the swearing because we want people to say how they feel. I say how I feel all the time.
Okay. Yeah. Things right now. Yeah. It's more than fucked up. So like you said, just things like, he brought it a lot of things to our attention. People started saying, "Oh, the national anthem," and then I was big on it. When I went to school, we would say the national anthem every day. Every day, even in high school, we recited it because I was from that era. And then, like last year, I find out that there's a verse in there promoting slavery. I was just like, dude, we got to change that. Now that we know that and it's out in the public, it's like it's wrong to have that. Pick a different one. Have somebody write a different one, because this one is not what you're not a representation, no longer representation of the country as a whole.
Right.
You know what I mean? If it's not. And so instead of keeping it, somebody's got to get, some politicians got to be like, we got to change it. And people will be offended and start saying, no, we don't need to. But guess what? It's just like anything else. It's got to be done. If we're going to be equal, we got to be equal. What I mean? And no matter, no matter what color or no matter what your sexual preference is, you know what I mean? If we're going to be equal, we're going to be equal. That's it.
All right. Smooth is having some technical difficulties, but while you're on, are you you are a martial artist and you've been competing. Have you noticed the scene, the competition scene from when you were competing till now? What do you think is different about it?
Well, I think the shift in competition on different levels is different. Like MMA is more entertaining now than when we used to compete, like because basically when I competed, if it was Sanda, there were more rules. I think it's gone the other way where it's a little bit more entertaining. What I would say is you have a lot of ground game, and sometimes I get bored of that. When they're on the ground a little bit, that's my time to go grab a beer or grab something to drink while I'm watching it, and I can sneak away while I won't do that if they're standing up. So I think that the ground game, they should make a 3-minute limit, 3 minutes stand them up, start all over again. You know what I mean? If your ground skill is really good in 3 minutes, you should seal the deal. Otherwise, stand them back up. But this is my opinion. As far as like MMA, and as far as like the other sport, as far as like martial arts sport, it's different now. They've got to figure out a way to entertain people a little bit more. I think a lot of the right now the MMA is really dominating the whole sport martial arts scene. And though there's different sides of it, of sport martial art, I think they've got to find a way to let that shine a little bit.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing because as a kid watching ESPN, you used to actually see like ISKA fights all the time. And they were prime time. It wasn't like 1, 2 in the morning. It was actually 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock fights. And they were pretty entertaining. And now, I get it. MMA is a sport, and it is a popular sport, but it's not, it's not the end all be all. Not for me anyway. And like I gotta tell kids that I know, like, you gotta understand that the sport that you see now is not how it started.
Right.
Which means it was an evolution to MMA, and the evolution starts arguably with Bruce Lee. You think MMA, like people say MMA, but they don't know what MMA means. And MMA for me means mixed martial arts, which means I learned several different styles and I put them together, and I took myself into this octagon to see how it works. Not just, I put you on the ground and I beat you up, because that's just a normal street fight to me. So it's like, I would like to see, especially with ESPN, because I know ESPN covers this, I would like to see the NSKA, ISKA. I would like to see more fights for those, because, competitive fighting is actually, a start for some of these guys.
Yeah.
And I would like to see, if you're going to make the jump to MMA or UFC or Pride Fighting or whatever, let's see how you got started. Show me the ISKA fights. I wouldn't mind that.
See, I'm going to agree with you too. There's still, if you watch an ISKA fight, there's still a sense of the old martial art tradition in it. And I think that sometimes that's missing out of the MMA. You know what I mean?
I agree.
To really do that, non-MMA fighting, you have to be study the martial arts for a while and show the art side of the martial art, and then you apply it to the martial side of martial art. And I think that's it could be just in the packaging. You know what I mean? If at one time it was popular and they just got to repackage it. I know it's easier to do the MMA packaging because they have a big platform right now, but there's room, and two, there's room to make money for those guys.
Not even the money. I just want to see and I get it. Everything's about money now, but for me, which is why I stopped watching boxing, I want to see why you got into it, how you got into it, and what made you as popular as you are.
Yeah.
And we got him back. Smooth, what's up, man?
What is up? I'm not sure how long this is going to stay on, but
where's your charger, man? You should know better.
Well, here's the thing. I actually have the phone plugged in, and it still was draining because not the original one that came with it. You know how that go?
Yeah.
So, Jesus.
Well, plus, I'm stealing your soul a little bit, Yeah. for me, I got to get off. I got a early morning, but it was fun. Hopefully, we'll be able to do it again soon. I appreciate you having me.
You're always welcome back. We appreciate you very much.
Maybe next time we'll pull one of the other guys on here. Like
they're always welcome too.
Especially
we actually
Kung Lao. Kung Lao is a huge all sport fan. You know what?
You know what?
Yeah.
If you can get him in or get us in touch with him,
yeah,
we will put you both on and we'll have some fun.
Oh, that would be awesome.
He is really about every sport he watches. Him and Philip Andrew Sheng Tsung. Those two guys watch they'll stay up till 2:00 in the morning watching any replays of sports, football, basketball, baseball, tennis. Sheng Tsung will tennis, golf. He'll be like, "Hey, I was up last night watching the golf game." I'm like, "Golf game?" For me, I can watch sports, but I can't watch that much golf. But he's just like, "Yeah, I was watching golf." I was like, "What?"
You know what? I'm not even gonna lie to you. I just figured out how to actually score golf, so I can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's a deep sport. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, we'll do it again, man. But thanks again.
We appreciate you being on. It's a true honor.
We loved having you. This is great.
Yeah. So we'll hang out again.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Enjoy your night. Okay, that was Master Daniel Pesina, Johnny Cage, Scorpion, Sub-Zero from the first two Mortal Kombat games. Now, got a topic for you, and I thought this was interesting.
Okay.
Dana White okayed a fight, if it happens, between John Jones and Brock Lesnar.
Oh, I've seen that. Yes. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm not gonna laugh, but when I saw this and I mentioned it to you last week, it was either one of those two that he was gonna okay, and it ended up being Brock. And this would make sense because they took all of Brock's merchandise off the WWE website. So
free agent.
Yeah, he is. So is it possible they get this fight done? And if so, do you think Jones has a chance?
See, here's the problem with this. I feel like, because I was thinking about this last week, and it's something that we had talked about too, how, they were saying that Jones usually has to cut weight in order to be a part of light heavyweight division. So for him to be like his regular element, which I'm sure based off of his frame, he could easily walk around 220, you know what I mean? Something like that. Now, the thing is, though, Brock be cutting to get down to 260. But the difference is, like, you look at him now versus 10 years ago, and all those issues he had, like with his stomach and all those other things that he had going internally, and how sick he would get and things like that. I feel like, over the years, maybe he's changed some stuff up, like his diet and things like that, that might help him out a little bit, or it could have been something else going on that we don't really know about. But I feel like, with him being away from MMA for as long as he has, and then to be able to come back in there, yeah, he may be a little bit rusty in some places. But I feel like, when you're away from something like that for so long, it gives you a little bit more time. Because you think about, like, okay, where we would have been at, or let's say even you more recently, Mel, with the indoor ball, if you had that gap, like let's say you had a little bit of time, a few years here and there where you weren't playing and you were still just like, keeping in shape, getting ready for that opportunity and things like that, and those years going by and then coming back to it, how much longevity that can give you as well too. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it's more so one of those things where folks might be like, oh, he's older, he's not the same way as he was when he was, battling Frank Mears and his other guys or whatever who had way better jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. And it's just like, look, at the end of the day, Lesnar's an all-American wrestler, right? That dude's the real deal. Okay, if he gets you down there, yeah,
yes.
I don't know what you're gonna do. It's not. And this dude's hands is like huge. It's one of those situations where I feel like even with all the techniques that Jones has, he don't want this fight to go to the ground. Lesnar's just not that dude that you want to be on the ground with. Just from bare strength, weight, technique. Like he knows how to get out of
Power.
those power. Right. Like he knows how to get out of those submissions, man. That's the thing. People don't give him credit for his submission defense. We always talk about how he's not really trying to, choke anybody out or do all this other kind of stuff. They're more of a ground and pound type and stuff like that. But people do not give this man credit for his submission defense. He gets out of so many different holes. Like he
Because
was a
he's too
problem for
damn
Frank.
strong.
Right. Like Frank Mir was a black belt in jiu-jitsu. That dude was giving him problems on the ground. Like they was on the ground scrapping. They was
You
rolling.
can't.
They was rolling. Okay.
And not to mention, let's not forget this. Brock know how to do submissions too.
Mm-hmm.
He actually, it might have been WWE, but he knew how to use the Kimura lock, and that lock actually hurts. For those that don't know, that lock hurts. You could literally lose your elbow down from just being put in that lock.
Yeah.
So, my opinion on this is, if it does happen, I'm automatically giving the edge to Brock, and I'm not saying John Jones don't have a chance, but Brock is a different animal. Brock don't have to do much besides lose weight to get ready for this fight. John Jones has to gain weight. He has to train differently. He has to approach the fight differently. Brock's been in heavyweight division his whole entire career.
Exactly.
John Jones has had to move up. I'm not saying he can't do it, because Roy Jones did it in boxing, but this is two different sports, two different combat sports.
Exactly.
One's using your hands, the other one is using your entire body as a complete weapon. So Brock may not kick, but Brock will punch. Brock will wrestle. Brock will ground and pound. You have to keep Brock at a distance, literally, because if Brock gets anywhere within arm's length of you, bad things can happen. So the reason I'm giving Brock the edge is because Brock don't have to do much. You say, Brock, you got to fight. Who am I fighting? Stipe. Okay. I look at some film. I study tendencies. I don't have to lose too much. Stipe comes in at what? 230, 240?
Mm-hmm.
Brock may have to lose 10 pounds, come in at 250, 245. John has to get up to at least 220 just to hold his own in this fight.
Exactly.
Because if he's not anywhere near that, Brock may toss him around the ring just because, or around the octagon just because.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying it's going to be an uphill battle just because you're moving into the ultimate division in the UFC, which is the heavyweights. Time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah, because I'm with you on that. I feel like Jones definitely have his hand full, and then Brock's not the kind of person that you call out. When I saw that, I was like, yeah, you're giving more fuel to the fire than it needs to be. Like Brock already is going to be like laser focused.
The bear.
Yeah, you don't need to make him mad. Like, because here's the thing, and this is just from various conversations, things that I've read, people that I've seen practice. They always say, try to have your emotions in check when you're in a fight, stuff like that. Brock is a different dude.
Right.
He taps into that. If he's not angry, he's lost the fight. His last fight when he got beat down. See, that's what I'm saying. In that last fight that he lost, when he was all bloodied up, you could tell his head was somewhere else, man. He was looking all over the place and didn't seem as mean. Like the fight started, really he would stare you down, with that weird, like, growl or whatever he does, and just kind of look at you like you ain't nothing. Man, that last fight, he was just like he was waiting for it to be over with. I was like, oh man, this ain't so good. After that first round.
Let's look at reality about this too. Last thing I'm gonna say about it, but let's look at reality. Brock's WWE contract, he didn't have a lot of appearances, and he was the champ. So his body didn't really get beat on. In any match he was in, he really didn't take a lot of bumps, chair shots, yeah, but that was part of the line. But it wasn't an every night contract.
True.
It was by appearance. So he didn't have to make that many appearances. So his body is saved. His body is fresh.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about John's. John may You might have to. He might stress his body out trying to make weight to get to this fight if it happens.
Yeah, and not to mention some of the out of ring struggles, man. Unfortunately, the different substances and all of
Man,
that.
yeah,
And
you
I
got a
hope that
lot
he's
going
past
on.
it. Yeah, this is different, man. Like the John Jones from 5, 6 years ago and the one now. Like
Two
I'll be
different
honest,
people.
if it was him like back then, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, we can go toe to toe with this one. Now I'm like, I don't know. Unless he got that stamina to keep him on his feet, cool. But like I said, Brock got crazy submission defense, and that dude's takedowns is nasty.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
nasty. He ain't got to shoot in on you. He don't have
Right.
to
He
shoot
could
in on
just grab you.
you. He can just grab you and just overhead slam, just throw you around like it ain't nothing. So
All right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I did want
Okay.
to ask you though.
Go ahead.
So a couple of contracts got extended, right? DeAndre Hopkins is one of them. This dude just got a 2-year extension worth 54.5 mil with the
I wish I
Arizona
could get that kind of
Cardinals
money.
with 42.5 guaranteed. 2 years, dog. 2 years.
We in the wrong profession, bro.
A wide receiver just got QB money. Let's just keep
But
it
he
real.
deserves it. Look,
Oh yeah, he
before
deserved
you
it. I'm not gonna
before
go against that.
before you even
But
get started, let's look at the reality of these contracts, man. As a professional athlete, you're being snubbed so much than what you're worth.
yeah,
And for those that don't know, as a professional player, when you sign to a team that you're not, when you sign the contract of a team and the team is not in the state that you live in, you're going to get taxed more. Now,
hmm
here's what I mean by that. Ronnie, I've told you this, but when you're a player, and let's say you play for, I don't know, Las Vegas, formerly Oakland, your contract is going to be, let's say, $10 million. A percentage of that is going to be taxed to another state. Why? Because every game that you play that's not a home game counts as you playing in another or you working in another state, which is
hmm
true. You do for that day, you do work in that state because you're playing an opposing team, but you're going to get taxed for it. Not to mention 10% you have to pay to your agent, whatever fine you may get that comes out, uh, city taxes, federal taxes if they come out. I'm not sure that they still do that, but I do know that you get taxed for playing out of state. So that money's gonna come out either way. And you've got billionaire ownership behind you. This is why I had this conversation a couple of days back. This is why you will never see a salary cap in baseball because these players have too much power, which is something I think the NFL Players Association should look at
Oh
because
yeah.
a lot of these players, like Hopkins and like Kareem Hunt, granted, Kareem Hunt has been through some things, as if
hmm
every player, Chris Carter had a drug addiction. He's in the Hall of Fame. Arguably the best hands ever in the history of football, not pro football,
Absolutely.
football. So, you know, I think these players deserve a little bit more money than what they're being offered.
hmm
But for in Hopkins' situation, he deserves it. He plays his ass off. I hardly ever see him getting in trouble, and he's arguably one of the best receivers in the game today. Kareem Hunt, arguably the better running back out of. I'm not gonna say out of Chubb, but the better running back out of the NFC North because Chubb has shown he can play a whole season.
hmm
Nothing against Kareem, but you know, in a situation where Kareem will be needed, I think he's worth the 13 million.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with Stefanski and his playbook, I think, you know, if you don't keep him, you put Chubb at high risk And you're going to need Chubb this year if you plan on making the playoffs. And
Mm-hmm.
every media outlet in the country has you picked to either be second place or win the division and make the playoffs. So I thought when you sent me the Kareem Hunt thing, I thought that was needed, to be honest. I was
Oh
wondering when
yeah.
they were going to do it because he's that type of player and he shines where Chubb doesn't. And I don't mean Chubb sucks as a player, but as far as catching out of the backfield, Kareem's better.
Oh
Lining
yeah.
up at receiver to run a route, Kareem's better.
And he runs great routes, by the way.
For a running back, yes, he
For a
does.
running back,
He's almost a tight end status with that.
oh yeah.
And like I said, he can catch. He's a running back with hands. And that's something you need in today's NFL because you're throwing the ball more than you are running it. Now, I think he's worth more than 13 million? Yes. But this is a start for him and the Browns because think about every weapon you have on that Browns offense. Jarvis Landry, Odell, Hooper, and Njoku. You got Chubb in the backfield, and you got Kareem if you decide to put him out there. That's 6 people you got to worry about out of 11. If Baker can get his head together and stay
Man,
focused,
man.
that offense is going to scare the shit out of people. Not just talking that. I'm a Steelers fan. You see it. I am a Steelers fan, but I know reality. I know if I see a team that got Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham, Hooper, Njoku, Kareem Hunt, and Nick Chubb, I'm worried. As a defensive player, I'm calling everybody I know on defense. Hey, look, we got to talk about
Mm-hmm.
this, man. Because, yeah, Stefanski, great offensive coordinator, and that's what got him this job. He's a great offensive coordinator, which means he has the mind for offense, just like Josh McDaniels has the mind for offense in New England. And now that he's got Cam Newton, there's no telling what's not been used in that playbook.
True.
And there's no telling what's not been used in Stefanski's playbook that he can use now.
Mm-hmm.
The AFC North should worry big time. They should be shitting a golf ball because this could turn ugly. Just for the sake of argument, now that you signed Kareem Hunt to that extension, Kareem Hunt has motivation now.
Mm-hmm.
This
Absolutely.
is Kevin Mack and Ernest Biner all over again. Now you got a friendly competition in the backfield.
Yep.
And just think about this. Rounded up numbers. Chubb had 1,400 yards rushing. Kareem Hunt had 400 and something yards combined, rushing and receiving last season. Now Kareem Hunt got a whole season with Chubb and Stefanski. You got Odell, Hooper, and Jarvis to take the load off, bruh. Now think about this. Odell and Jarvis both got over 1,000 yards last year. Odell was hurt all
Hurt,
season.
hernia and everything.
Imagine what this offense is going to look like now that everybody's healthy. I wrote this on my article for CLE Sports Talk. Imagine what it's going to look like on game day. Baltimore's defense, yes, great front seven, shitty secondary, very suspect. I'm not going to say they're shitty, but they're very suspect. Very suspect. And you have to have somebody to cover all three. Hooper and Njoku, so that's 4. You got to cover them 2. You got to cover Jarvis and you got to cover Odell. And you can line Jarvis up on the outside now because he
Yep.
has the speed. You can
Yep.
line Jarvis up actually anywhere you want. Then you got Donovan Peoples-Jones. So you got weapons.
And here's my thing on that, Mel. You have all those guys, and you and I both know from a defensive perspective, you got 2 guys on the outside like that can stretch the field, and then you have a tight end on the level of Hooper, okay, who's going to get you all these routes in the middle, crosses, ins, outs, all of that. You're going to force linebackers to start having to cover because it's not just going to be about the run with this type of offense. Okay. It's going to be to the point where Stefanski, being the kind of offensive person that he is, can look at that and go, okay, I can open up this big gap in the middle. I can have Kareem come up whenever I want underneath to pick up the slack for Hooper, okay? Because Odell and Jar's going to do their thing regardless.
Right.
Right? Because as soon as you leave one of them open, the ball's coming right there. I guarantee that's what they're going to do. They're going to say, okay, we're going to maybe, pick on Beckham a little early, double team him, whatever. Cool. But you do that, and you got 3 or 4 other guys waiting, okay? You get a better offensive line, so Baker should have at least 1.2 to 2 more seconds than he had before. Then on top of that, you have someone like Chubb who I guarantee you, even though he's not the pass catcher that Kareem Hunt is,
he didn't improve.
He's going to be catching. He's going to be catching.
It's no secret he's improved.
No one's going to think about it. They're going to be like, oh, he in the game, he's going to pound the rock. Let's put people in the box and blah, 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 blah. Okay. You do that. You go ahead and do that. You go ahead and look at the last 2 years of film and you go, oh, yeah, they ain't going to do nothing different with him. That's the guy they're going to have pound the rock three downs or whatever. And, he's going to be there getting the run and blah, blah, blah. No, absolutely not. Whatever you saw the last 2 years is not going to be like that.
Right.
It's not going to be that way.
I completely agree, and I'm nervous.
Not going to be
because, and here's why
it's
I'm
all
nervous.
on Baker.
It is.
It's all on Baker.
But here's why I'm nervous. The last couple of years, historically, we'll go that far. Historically, since the AFC North started in 2002, the AFC North has been traditionally a defensive division.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
This year, the Browns come in from last year with the league's number 6 offense and number 7 defense, if my memory serves me right.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, they have a top 10 defense.
Especially in the secondary.
The Ravens lost key players, especially Earl Thomas. Their secondary was already suspect with Thomas. Now you lose Thomas. You have an even more suspect secondary. The Steelers' defense is old. Not only is it old, they are missing key components. And those key components are linebackers. TJ Watt is a defensive end. He's not a linebacker. He may look like one. He may be in the scheme to look like one, but he's a defensive end.
Yep.
In this league now. If this was 4 or 5 years ago, yes, he's a linebacker. But the way the game is played now, he's a defensive end and he rushes. Opposite of Cam Hayward. The Bengals don't have a defense.
No, they.
Not only do they not have a defense, they have a young quarterback. It is going to be a problem if nobody in the AFC North can stop the Browns. And I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm not saying the Browns are going to be the almighty team that everybody wants them to be. But when you look at the paper and you look at the depth chart, you have a problem at every key position that you need to cover on defense. That alone should make you even more diligent in your defensive playbook to figure out what we can throw together to stop this offense. Because if this offense get hot by week 6, it's going to be problems.
And now that you mentioned linebackers, you brought up a good point because I wanted to point this out too, because I know some people watching. When you said what you said about TJ Watt and him pretty much being the defensive end, do you feel that same way about Dupree?
About who?
Dupree. Because he feels like a hybrid to me.
He is. And that's the good thing about Dupree. The bad thing, here's the thing. The Steelers have been known when Dick LeBeau was defensive coordinator, he was known for throwing exotic zone blitzes and exotic blitzes at you. You don't have that anymore. You let Dick LeBeau go.
That was
Now you have a problem that you may or may not be able to solve. And this is the problem. Ryan Shazier is gone. He's not coming back.
yeah,
That's your
sad.
first part of the. It's sad, but you got to move on. I'm not
Yeah.
taking anything. I love Shazier, but
Thank God he can
defensively,
walk.
yeah, that's a miracle.
Seriously.
But football wise, that's a problem because Shazier not only could cover, he could tackle. Your
Hard.
biggest problem in your front seven is your linebackers aren't good at tackling. This last couple of years, they have not been good at tackling.
Nope.
Yes, Dupree is a hybrid. Yes, Dupree is going to be a better linebacker as his career progresses. But right now, being a linebacker is the least of your worries. Here's why. Like I said earlier, the game has changed. You're throwing more than you are running. Dupree is a sure tackler. There's no doubt about that. But he is
Yep.
very sketchy in coverage.
True.
So, like I said, if there is not an offense, or if there's not a defense rather, that has a game plan strong enough to keep up with the Browns by week 6, it's going to be a problem. And they have arguably the toughest first 8 games of anybody's schedule.
Mm-hmm.
You got to see Baltimore, you got to see Washington, and you got to see Dallas, and you got Pittsburgh in that mix. Dallas has a decent defense. They've seen Stefanski because Stefanski's come from the NFC.
Yep. With
But
Minnesota.
the problem with Dallas, the problem for Dallas is that they've not seen a offense with 6 different people that can just take over the game.
True.
Washington, the same way. They've seen Stefanski's offense, but they've never seen 6 people that have been on the same side who can run this offense with him. You and I said this, I'm sticking by this. If this game, the first game against Baltimore, if this game is close going into the fourth quarter, Baltimore's going to have a problem because once they get tired of Chubb, Kareem's going right in. And
Mm-hmm.
Kareem is way stronger than Chubb. Austin Hooper is way stronger than Njoku. Odell and Jarvis are going to run circles around your secondary if your secondary is not ready. This first game, even if the Browns lose this game by Lamar Jackson taking over, if this game is in the realm of 7 points or less, I guarantee you the next time they see Baltimore, the Browns will win, and it might be a fight for the division.
Oh yeah.
Because outside of Lamar Jackson, there's not an offense in this division that the Browns are worried about. There's not a defense, I guarantee you, in this division that scares Stefanski. And what's crazy about this is I'm predicting an 11-5 season. If they can get past these first few weeks, if they can break 500 by the bye week, I'm predicting 11-5, and they'll be in the playoffs.
And that's the key, man. The first 7, 8 games, man, is the key. They can't fall behind too much. And we talked about this before too, where just in the first 4 weeks alone, man, you gotta break even with the boys, man.
Got to,
You gotta
and I
break even
and I
with
believe
those.
they can do it. I think
I
they
believe
can
they
do
can
it.
do it too. But if you get in that situation where you like a 1-3, you know what I'm saying, or God forbid a 0-4, man, you okay. Yeah, we'll see. But the thing is, like, you gotta break even with the first 4 games, man. You have to. You have to. And then speaking of which, because I know they play the Titans, right? So of course there was Javion Clowney finally signed, I guess. 1 year for like 14 or 12, yeah, 12 million for 1 year, and then he has like incentives where he gets like
Yeah,
15 or something like that. So I saw that, I go, okay, 1 year, cool. You're not taking a risk on a guy. Here he is coming into, an AFC South team. Um, It's
But he was
almost like, all
already
right,
with an AFC South team. He was with Houston.
yeah, that's true too. I forgot about the Houston situation. The thing is, like with Houston, it was just so weird, man. Because here he is, he's drafted high, just like it had back in the day when who else they draft high like that? That was on defense. Was that them or was it Buffalo? Which team had drafted Mario Williams high like that?
Who?
Remember Mario Williams?
Shit, man, I don't even remember that.
See what I'm saying? Like that dude, he was paid way too much up front. He's like a first round pick. You know what I mean? Gave him all these incentives and everything
But that
else,
was,
and he was
but
hurt
see,
all the time.
that was two different things though. Jadeveon Clowney, he played like he was supposed to, and at that position, you gotta understand. You of all people should know this. At that position, it's gonna happen.
Oh
Getting
yeah,
hurt's gonna happen. You're gonna get cut. You're gonna get blocked in the back. You're gonna, knock heads with somebody. So it's not like that stuff you can avoid.
and you won't get a penalty at all.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
Mario Williams. I honestly think Mario Williams was overrated.
I do too.
I could be. That could just be my opinion, but he was overrated. I think not that the Titans already had a bad defense because they had a defense good enough to get them to uh, the semifinals.
True.
I think this was a smart move. I wish the Browns, truthfully, would have made this move because now you have arguably a top 5 defense if you sign him.
Yeah, they tried it though,
Because,
but he turned it down. He was like, "No."
well, I mean, I get
The
it.
money was
I
there
understand
too.
it. Yeah, it was. But just to think that, you have a chance if you're Clowney, you got a good chance. And the only team you really got to worry about is Baltimore. And if Clowney signs with Cleveland, you're opposite of Myles Garrett. So you don't really have to work that hard because everybody gonna be really worried about Garrett. Not to say anything bad about Clowney, but it was the same thing when you were in Houston with Watt. Everybody was more worried about Watt. You end up getting 10 sacks.
Exactly. It was a
You
great
know,
scenario, man.
right? That's that, and I don't understand why he turned it down because that's the same scenario. Now you don't have to work as hard to get your sacks, get your tackles in the backfield. All you got to do is just play off of your nose tackle or play off of Garrett.
Because they were willing to. It was funny because I was reading into that, and I remember this a couple of months ago when they were trying to get this dude. They were willing to pay him as high as like 20
I'd have took that.
a season
I'd have took
to
that
play that.
because here's the thing. Who do you have to worry about blocking you in the AFC North? Nobody. Nobody. It ain't like, and just for the sake of the argument, it ain't like Jonathan Ogden is still playing. It ain't like Mac is still center or Mac is still on the team with the Browns at all.
Nope.
Because they always said, your toughest opponent is going to be in practice. There's nobody on the Steelers offensive line currently that could actually be able to keep up because Clowney still has the speed.
Yeah.
So there's nobody that can keep up with him. And then the Bengals, enough said, it's the Bengals. If it was me and I'm Clowney, I would have took it because now I'm in a perfect scenario. I could get 10 sacks for however long I'm playing there. Nobody can block me. I'm too damn strong. You were strong in Houston.
True.
If you could have stayed healthy, I honestly believe if you could have stayed healthy, Houston's in the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That team was stacked, man. Man.
So I honestly believe it's a good move for Tennessee. They need a defensive lineman. Right. But it would have been an even better move for the Browns if Clowney signs. Because now you get, and I hate to say it like this, but now you get to get rid of Olivier Vernon. You get to move a second stringer up to play nose or interior defensive lineman. You get to move a second stringer up, give him a chance.
Yeah.
And, it's just a lot that you could have done with that. We'll never know now. And, you know, however long Clowney's got, I think this would have been the perfect move. And you're still in your prime, so to speak.
That's true too. And I mean, and looking at where he signed, because you figure, okay, him being in the same division with now Houston, and then you have what the Colts,
Colts ain't
and
going nowhere.
then well, yeah. But I'm saying like in terms of like your matchups that you have to worry about, from a defensive side, him rushing against those teams, and then you have what's the third team? Because you got Colts, you have the Texans, and then you have the
Colts,
Titans,
Texans, Titans, and Jags.
the Jaguars, and the Jaguars are dismantling themselves. So
Why?
you
I don't know.
know he has another scenario here where it's like, okay, these are your other three teams you got to worry about in the division for 6 games or whatever. So okay, that kind of makes sense too. But then from an offensive perspective, like you just gave all this money to, Deshaun
Tannehill.
Watson.
Well, yeah, Tannehill got money too,
Yep, Tannehill.
which is why I kind of don't like the fact that he signed for 12 to 14 million because you could have got 20 with the Browns.
Yeah.
Maybe it was
So
something that went on that we don't know. We'll never know the ins and outs completely, but maybe he just don't like cold weather. I don't know. But now that you bring that up, I'm thinking that was a good move for the Titans, a dumb move for him if this was about money.
right. So I'm kind of wondering what his goal was or what he sees, and like you said, it's something that happened behind that we don't know about. Cool. And he could just be looking at it like, hey, this is the team that got the closest, last year that wasn't, New England or
But that was last year.
or the Chiefs, however.
Every year is different. Every year is different.
Yeah, that's true too. Plus, they lost one of their offensive linemen to Cleveland.
Man,
The
be like
same
that
guy that put
sometimes,
that
man.
block on us when Derrick Henry took up the sideline.
Oh man.
Yeah, he wearing orange and brown now.
And gave Earl Thomas the go ahead, get out of here.
Bruh. When I saw that, I was like, oh, we got him? Okay. So he like, oh, we can't beat this dude. Let's have him come on and be a part of our line. I like that move. Go ahead and do that. Go ahead and sign that cat.
Oh yeah. Last thing before we wrap it up. That BYU game I told you about last night, I sat and
Man,
watched it fully. It was bad.
I'm just like, wow, was y'all that happy to be back? Like, what was
Probably.
the
Probably.
drive behind that? Like, because I felt bad even seeing that. I'm thinking to myself, like, all right, so is this one of those things where you just like licking your chops, like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to hit that
And you
field.
know what's
It's gonna be
crazy?
crazy.
That was the first game. I don't know if it was historic, but it was
Hmm.
historic in the terms that it was the first game where there were two Polynesian head coaches against each other.
Ooh,
Yeah, because maybe I forget his name off the top of my head, but he's Polynesian and BYU's coach is Polynesian. So, you know, I think that was a big step. And like I said, here what people don't realize about BYU is that BYU historically is a good team.
hmm
BYU ain't no punks. And to go in the Navy and let them only hang 55 on them, running the ball,
yeah.
something that they do very well. And look, I bet you, and they said it, and I wish they would have like just let the season play out
hmm
because BYU had a game against Wisconsin at Lambeau this season. COVID messed that up.
Wow.
I would have loved to see that game.
And look at the stats right now, just seeing what BYU was able to do.
Bro, they had
Because looking
500
at
yards of
this,
offense, man.
and on top of that, the top three guys that got the most touches, the lowest average was 5.1 yards a carry.
Ooh, that's
The
bad,
highest
man.
average was 9.4 yards a carry. Off of 14 touches, he got 132 yards.
That's scary.
Yeah,
That's
like
scary.
really? And then for those of y'all who also don't know, they didn't just pound it. I mean, the
They threw
quarterback
it.
had 232 yards, right? But
All right.
their primary receiver had 4 catches for
Yes.
134. So they just killed them in all aspects of the game. They was just out there playing NCAA football, EA
Is
Sports
back.
version. It was that's what that looked like. 'Cause I saw the
Yeah.
clips. I'm like, this the
It was
first
bad.
game? Man,
It was bad.
and they were at Navy, right?
Yeah. In Annapolis.
Disrespectful, man. You go up in their
And
house,
Navy
you're like,
Navy had a cold uniform on too. It was all blue. Made them look bad. Don't wear their uniform no more.
I mean, I'm tempted to go back just to see how they got the 3 points.
They kicked the field goal in the third quarter.
It's like, what did
BYU
y'all
let them
do?
get that close.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was sitting there like, what did y'all do during that drive that you didn't do all the other drives? Let me go back and look at that film. Goodness gracious,
What? Just I'm pretty sure Hulu or somebody will let it. ESPN will replay it at some point. I'll let you know. All right, folks. Once again, thank you all for tuning in. We'd like to thank Daniel Pesina once again for being on the show. Very humble to have him on. Very, very, very fun trip down memory lane for those who saw it. Catch us next week. We have a very special guest again, as we have the Panther himself, Eric Betts, on to join us. It's gonna be a good one too. Smooth.
Hey, you know me, man. Be nothing less than something special, y'all. And don't forget, 2 more days. The NFL is back, baby. Thursday night
Yeah.
football is
Yeah.
happening. It's not being
Oh,
canceled. It's not
oh,
being
by the
canceled.
way, for those of y'all that have been catching our posts, make sure you guys go and vote for our Friday night super fight tournament, because we have been having a lot of laughs about these matchups. Right now, the current matchup in the tournament is Shonuff versus Kung Fu Joe. Make sure you go vote, like for Kung Fu Joe, put a heart up for Shonuff, and just get the word out if you can. Yeah, we got a very, very good and funny matchup after this one, so just stick with us. All right, folks, that wraps it up for us for 4 for 15. I'm Mel. That's Smooth. Peace.